Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime, a modern suite of basic banking services we can all use. Chime is reliable, official, modern, and FDIC insured. So why not see what they can offer you? Sign up for a Chime checking account today to link your paycheck. It only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, for a checking account, savings account, debit and credit cards, and more, head to chime.com/sacred. Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. See chime.com/spotme. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Athletic Greens and their AG1 supplement. AG1 is a powder that you mix into a glass of water and drink every day. When you do, you'll be flooding your body with an insane 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source superfoods that easily fit into a host of dietary restrictions and lifestyle choices. If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs of AG1 with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/sacred. That's athleticgreens.com/SACRED. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/sacred for a high-quality, healthy supplement that can help you live your best life. Check it out.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Liquid IV, the exceptional way to stay hydrated and energetic. Grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code SACRED at checkout. That's LIQUIDIV.com with the checkout code SACRED. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code SACRED at liquidiv.com.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 252. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today, my friend? We were just talking about how Jerry Springer, RIP, is deceased.
Yeah.
79 years old, not very old. Ex-mayor of Cincinnati, of course, famous talk show host. But you were referencing him not knowing that he had passed away, which is so strange. But I saw that this morning and I was kind of stunned by it. It's sad. I loved Jerry Springer when I was a kid. I loved it.
Yeah.
Anyway, how are you, my friend? I don't know why I went on that diatribe about Jerry Springer. It just was
Jerry Springer's dead. And that's how I'm doing.
Damn.
I don't know. I'm doing all right. I inhaled my breakfast before this. So I'm feeling a little weird because it's been a while since I've inhaled food like out of urgency because I was like, oh, I want to get here in time. And then you were late.
Yeah, then I'm sorry. I was late. Yeah.
Evil son of a bitch, this man.
Sorry. I'm usually on time.
No, you're good.
I'm usually timely, but yeah, I was 5 minutes late today because I had to write something and get it done. But I'm very behind this week. Like I just feel very frazzled. I'm wondering if I feel this way in part because I'm really lowering my. I didn't. My psychiatrist cut my antidepressants in half or whatever. We're trying to lower that, and so I've been on that for the last month, which I feel fine with. And then I've cut my Ativan, my anxiety meds, in half as well, and even less than that. And so I feel generally fine, but I have this more obviously anxious energy, and I don't think it's very productive or as productive as I usually am. So I have to kind of readjust a little bit. Dustin Furman, executive producer. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Last night, I went with a couple dudes to basically one of the local dive bars here in Butler. Got delicious wings. And so nice. What's great about this, some people aren't going to like this. In fact, I hate to start the show with something so disgusting, but the next day after you eat wings, you burp a little bit, you taste it again. It just, they linger with you.
Is that exclusive to wings?
No, is it a chicken thing? Because I feel like that happens with Chinese food too.
Oh yeah, maybe
that. It's gonna stick around. But man, there's nothing better. I was telling the guys when we were there, it was open mic night. There was some guy playing some horrible country songs. I noticed that on the draft list they do not serve Budweiser there anymore. It was very small town Western PA, and I thought I kind of like this. There's nothing pretentious about this. People are just trying to have a nice time on a Wednesday night with some wings. Felt good, in a way. So I'm riding high off those wings right now. Let me tell you.
I'm pleased to hear it, and it's an interesting story. But I'm pleased to hear. Yeah, the bud thing is so interesting. The Bud Light thing, because down here in Virginia, I think it's kind of resonating a little bit too. But I don't know if it's like that everywhere. So we'll see what happens. Well, it's good to be here with you guys today. It's good to be here with all of you out there. Thank you for listening and watching, and spiritually and mentally and even sexually engaging with us here on Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We go up live each and every week, and you can get it early, 3 days early and ad free over on Patreon, patreon.com/LastStandMedia. It's the ability to submit your inquiries over there in addition to getting the show early and ad-free. Discord access, join more than 5,000 fellow fans, and so much more. Sacred Symbols Plus, obviously another huge perk for Patreon subscribers. Twice a week, extra episodes of Sacred Symbols that deep dive into various topics. Dustin recently did one on Final Fantasy XVI. We did one kind of on how we would want to see PSX or PlayStation experience reformed and so on. Micah and Holly recently did an episode, so my fiance and Dustin's wife, and they went for almost 3 hours. I actually started recording something with a guest after they started and finished before they finished.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, there's something maybe special, some sort of special chemistry cooking there. But people really, really dig that episode. So thank you so much for your kindness on that. Glad that you guys enjoyed that. Recent reviews and spoiler casts include Resident Evil 4 Remake. We did Dead Space a while ago. I don't know. I'll try to do Horizon DLC. I don't really know exactly how it's going to go. Jedi Survivor, maybe. I'm not playing that game, but maybe we'll do something there. So I don't know. Thank you for all of that. Asika Lam wrote into us, though. He said, "Oi, CCD." He must be maybe British or Australian. I assume Australian, maybe. I don't know. I wanted to take a moment to express my admiration for the recent shows. The new voices and perspectives that have breathed new life into the show, even more so now than when you all started doing the interview rounds. I appreciate how these episodes have felt more intimate and authentic, allowing us to connect with the guests on a deeper level. The diverse range of topics covered has been truly fascinating. I want to commend all of you on the great work you're doing in curating and producing these shows. It's evident that a lot of thought and care goes into each episode, and everyone's chiming in on the fly, even when it's not too boring, and the results in a show that is engaging, not too production heavy, comforting, and informative in places I wouldn't have bothered to think about. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And we especially appreciate everyone's support on Constellation, which is our weekly conversational podcast with a kind of like a growing following here out there. People are really enjoying the show. I appreciate that. Thank you. Merch, laststandmedia.store. And of course, leave us nice reviews on podcast services. You can leave a comment on this video, etc. We appreciate your support. Thank you so much. All right. I want to talk about the deli again. Quantum Radish wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Gents. Just writing in to say I've made the great journey." There's a reference for you there, Chris.
Hey,
the past weekend, I stopped by none other than Deli on the Circle with my girlfriend on our way up to upstate New York from Cincinnati. I tried the Sacred Sandwich while she had the Pitcraft Turkey Sandwich. I think that's what it says. Gotta say before this, I always got Kroger brand prepackaged turkey, but this Boar's Head stuff was insane. Oh my God, sounds gross. Prepackaged? You got prepackaged cold cuts?
You have to have a higher standard for your cold cuts at the very least. You know what I mean? Always go to the deli.
Right, you got to go to the deli. I mean, oh my God, that section on Long Island was exceedingly small, and like in the fridge section, because no one was doing that. No. This spot is about 20 minutes detour off of Interstate 71. If you or anyone out there listening are ever on the south side of Cleveland, it's definitely worth a stop for lunch. And a shout out to the two gentlemen working the counter Saturday morning. They were very polite and made the sandwiches in a very timely fashion. Keep up the great work, fellas. You get many of us through each and every day. Have a great weekend. Thank you. I am insistent on making us so intertwined with this deli. Here's what I picture. You know, when you go into like none of us have ever been in a home in North Korea, but certainly we've watched videos of people going into homes in North Korea, and they have two portraits on the wall in every living room, and it's a picture of Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un. No, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. And so what I want is a picture of me and Chris. Dustin came late. Dustin is like the Kim Jong. Who is it now? Kim
Il, isn't it?
What? Kim Il Sun's the first one. Kim Jong Il.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. Right.
That
Kim
means
Jong-un.
I'm in charge, Colin. Be careful here.
Yeah, I know that's true. But like
you're dead.
your picture will probably there at some point. We don't really know yet. We don't know if the system's going to survive long enough for your picture to get up there. But we know right now that that Chris and I can have our picture, and that's what I want. I want them to be very serious communistic portraiture.
Yeah, portraits. Yeah.
Of us just next to each other. No, Lenin and Stalin, very similar style.
We need to be dressed in very drab clothing.
Right. Olive green.
Holding a copy of the Daily Worker.
And looking into the like this.
Yeah.
Into the distance, of course.
Right. And there's like going to be a light beam behind us and like a hammer and so the hammer and the sickle, and North Koreans added a paintbrush to that. So it's hammer, sickle, and then the artist as well. Yeah, that's what their symbol is. Ours will be the hammer, the sickle, and the controller.
That's actually interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, you want to know the reason I know that is I read a lot about North Korea, but I also first saw it and I thought it was a missile. And I thought they were adding like a missile to it. So like, defense or militarism or whatever, but it's a paintbrush. Yeah.
I think we should fight for a halo on the portrait as well. I don't mean like video game wise. I mean like, those
like Dragon Ball Z when they die.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Doesn't Goku have a halo for a long time? It's not like an angel. It's like Dragon Ball Z.
Not a saintly halo. Not the halo you were probably thinking about, but
it's a biblically accurate Goku.
Whoa.
Behind all of us.
Okay.
What if Jesus went Super Saiyan?
Well, there is Super Saiyan God now, apparently.
That is true. Yeah,
there's new layers. of the Super Saiyan. It's like far beyond what my first grade mind could even handle. I think.
Yeah, that's vaguely sacrilegious. I wonder. Yeah. I wonder how devout religious people feel about Super Saiyan God.
Just crossing myself.
Sign of the cross.
All right, let's keep going. Well, I'm so glad, by the way, that people continue to go to Deli on the Circle. Let's make it a thing. Let's get our portraits in there. Unironically, me and Chris in our drab olive green military outfits, very proletariat looking. I think we have a promise there of something great. Spectre Bull wrote in and said, "Greetings, boys. This one is for Colin. So Discord put in their new soundboard feature, and it is a godsend. Colin, your typhoon of a turd wind from last week's episode has leaked into Jaffe's Gavin and game server. I've been spamming it in the voice chat all night, and now you are known as Colin Moriarty, the king of ass ripping. What is your acceptance speech, sir?" Wasn't that timing amazing last week?
That was pretty.
That was some authentic podcasting, my friends. Straight up radio. You know what I mean? That was perfect. Loved it. Was I going to shit myself? There was a 10% chance. 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to be good. 1 out of 10. I don't know how it would have turned out for me.
And I was
thinking about it. I mean, if you look at my face, you might not know, but in my mind, the wheel's churning, the fucking hamster's on the wheel.
It's a calculated risk.
Exactly, weighing the risk. And I was like, the comedy.
And then you know what? If you had shit yourself, you would have had to sit there. Because we were definitely not going to wait for you to go clean up. It's a long show. So
I wonder if I would have admitted it or just tried to, like, it would have never been known that I actually shit myself and sat there for like 2 hours or something. I don't even know when that came out.
If you would have shit yourself, that would have, it's already pretty legendary that you pulled that off when you did, but that would have been the icing on the cake for me. Like, that would have made it even better. More respect.
Awful choice of words.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad that the typhoon is making its way around. What was that face, Dustin?
I just remembered
a euphoric sort of face that you made.
Well, I'm curious about this because I added that sound to our Discord, but then I realized that it's only for voice channels, which people seldom use. But hey, just so you know, it's there. The only soundboard sound in the Last Stand Discord is the fart. And I wonder if someone saw it and had the inspiration to put it in Jaffe's server, or if it was both of us independently thought we need to make this sound on our individual servers.
It's a very clear sound. It kind of lends itself well to a soundboard.
Sure. Yeah.
By the way, is Jaffe one of us now? Like he's really like an object getting so close to the planet that its gravity well is going to pull it in. I feel like we already got Gene, right? Gene's already in orbit around the planet. He's in orbit around the planet. Sure. We got Ramon. He's in orbit around the planet. We got some other people in orbit around the planet. I think we're getting Jaffe. Like Jaffe's getting pulled in.
Yeah.
He's past the event horizon.
And Jaffe has no choice.
Right. Exactly.
We're
And I
taking
think
Jaffe
he'll
against his will.
fly into orbit at some point too. But people are really enjoying his stuff with us. It's so funny because I've known David Jaffe for 13 years, maybe something like that. And I've known him on what I would consider a friendship level for, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years, where we've been friends with each other, offline or whatever. And I must admit that I still am kind of intimidated by him. He's so dynamic and smart and interesting. You don't quite know. Like, he's the kind of guy you don't want. Not that he's ever been mad at me or upset with me, but it's like, man, that's the kind of guy I love him so much. It's like, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to do the wrong thing. He's so interesting, so dynamic. But then he also like turns things on you and turns interviews with him, making them into interviews on you. I mean, that's still one of the most famous shows we ever did for Sacred Symbols Plus, was when Jaffe just seized control of my interview with him and started interviewing me.
Yeah.
And so he's a very high level dynamic thinker, I think. Like, I think he's an interesting dude, and I love having him with us. I'm glad that people are enjoying those shows. We'll have him back soon.
He's the wild card. He reminds me of like on It's Always Sunny when they tell him to be the wild card. He's like, I cut the brakes.
Yeah,
wild card, bitches. Yeah, that's him. You never know.
Kicks his way out of the back of the van, jumps out.
That's a legendary part.
That was actually that episode in the oil. It's the same one, the Oil Man episode. That's the episode that made me a fan of that show. Well, just a couple of oil men here from Dallas.
Dude, maybe that's the origin of it's not the origin of the Southern man voice. But
it might be. I don't think so though, because the origin is really from before that. Like Ramon and I would do that voice. That voice is becoming a phenomenon. It's weird. Like, I didn't know it was anything that special. I don't think it is. People want to know what the saying is though. Like,
that's the point though.
We got a saying down here in South Carolina. But like, it's racist. Like, you don't know exactly what he's going to say, but it's racist.
Yeah, it's obviously.
Right. And
so only be so many things.
Right. So, but the other one I like saying now is, we do things a little bit differently down here in Georgia. And like what he's, something bad's he's going to say something bad next there too. So you kind of just have to put a pin in it. We've seen your type of person down here once or twice in Louisiana.
It's like
what kind of person? What are you talking about? Ooh,
it's like my friend's
pappy was a Mississippi. What'd you say, Chris? What did you say?
My grandpappy was a Mississippi what?
I was going to say a Mississippi River boatsman or something like that.
No, I was going to say it reminds me of like my friends and I got really obsessed with Red Dead Redemption. But we never play it together because it's a single player game. So every time we'd play together on like Destiny or something, we'd have like a bad match. We're like, oh man, that didn't go well, and we'd all go like, well, that's just how it goes. It's
time for me to hit the old dusty trail.
Yeah, time for me to hit the old dusty. That inflection's contagious. It's just like very infectious. Awesome. It's a very infectious way of speaking.
Remember that the story is that I was watching a Sunday show in the United States. A Sunday show is a political show that are like Meet the Press, those kinds of things. And there was a, as I've explained, a mayor from South Carolina who literally just said, in like a very slight Southern accent, like, we have a saying down here in South Carolina, and I just thought it was so funny that I just kept making it more and more horrible. So like, if you just cut it off there, but it was said so much more horrible. It's like, oh my God, what is the saying? What is the saying? I don't know. I don't think you want to know.
No.
All right. Let's see. Where else are we here? Oh yeah. James York wrote in. I thought this was funny. He says, hi CDC, quick one. Do you have it on good authority that Sony and other industry lawyers, suits, and PR folks are forced to listen to Sacred Symbols, the #1 PlayStation podcast, to keep a pulse on the community? I love the idea of frustrated corporate folks with fancy degrees and way better things to do forced to listen to you guys and throw their headphones off in frustration as you make fun of all the companies, dunk on CEOs, and break DMCA to act out cringe Tomb Raider scripts for our enjoyment. Keep up the great work. Tombe! Why? Tombe! So you're kind of mixing things up here. Lawyers and suits, no. PR, yeah, definitely. Hi, guys. Here's how it works. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight in how it works at different publishers and especially not developers so much, but publishers and whatever. So let's talk about PlayStation. PlayStation PR has different echelons of people. I don't really work with them anymore, so I'm not entirely sure how it goes anymore. But and I don't even want to say any names, but I know there's still a bunch of people I know there. And then in the lower and middle ranks, there's a lot of people I've never even really worked with. And the lower you shake out that tree, so it starts at like the beginning of marketing and PR, like probably the VP of PR marketing or whatever, who was a woman named Jen. I don't know if it's still that. And then from there, it kind of gets into her lieutenants. And then from there, it gets into their lieutenants. And then it kind of spreads into this team of dozens, globally, probably hundreds of PR people. And at the lowest rungs at a place like PlayStation of those PR webs are people that have to write reports about community happenings and buzz, what's being said on podcasts, watch those fucking cringe fanboy YouTube videos. They're seeing all of it. I'm telling you right now, they're seeing all of it. And do I have it on good authority that those people listen to the show? Absolutely. I have it on good authority that people way above PR listen to the show at PlayStation. And I'll be honest with you, someone at PlayStation told me that when they listen and talk about it, that it's like we get a lot of things right, but we also get things wrong. That's what was told to me. But that we, I guess, try to kind of admit when we get wrong, or they kind of understand when we get things wrong and all that, which I think is a great compliment to us, because we don't have all the information. So what we're really doing is prognosticating, so that we're kind of more right than wrong, or on the right track, even according to the home base, is great. And I don't blame them that they wouldn't want to work with us. We really don't want to work with anyone anyway, and we have no contact with them. So I don't know. I haven't spoken to Sony PR one time since 2019, I want to say, about anything at all. So I don't know exactly how it works over there anymore. But yeah, we have it on. This is an industry show too. A lot of people at a lot of different studios. I'm actually I haven't even told you guys yet. I'll tell you after the show. But like a random person got in touch with me that I'm going to talk to on the show soon, like an actor. And I was like, what? It's interesting. So like there's like some famous athletes that listen to the show. I won't out any of them that I know of. And so it's kind of cool that, like, just like anything out there, I always think about that. You could feel like your audience is just everyday people, and mostly it is, because most of us are just everyday people. But certainly when you increase the numbers of a show and get bigger like our show does, or even for some of the smaller shows, there's no doubt that someone famous or someone known or someone in a place of importance likes what you do or listens to it, or even has an adversarial relationship with it. So I always like thinking about that. If you look at the arena, like between, we could fill up easily an NFL stadium with the people that listen to the show every week, and more than that. But when you think about that number and all the different people, it's like, well, there's got to be someone in there that you wouldn't expect. I like that. It's fun.
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying, Colin, too, that obviously there are people that are forced to listen to us at PlayStation, but there are people that enjoy the show as well. Mm-hmm. Both from PlayStation and from other developers as well, that usually reach out privately one way or another. But it's always it's interesting to have that kind of dynamic. I've said before that I kind of like to. It's funny. I like knowing that people in development or at PlayStation listen, but also sometimes it adds a little bit of pressure, but not really, because it's not going to change. We're still going to say whatever we want. We've shown that to be the case over and over again. But yeah, it's fun. It's nice to know.
It's kind of funny because it's unencumbering. It becomes more and more unencumbering to not have to play that game. And like the PR game, I am so grateful to our audience, because I know that access is everything for a lot of outlets. And we've crafted this situation where it's actually totally irrelevant. In fact, the audience doesn't even expect it. And that's special. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so I appreciate that very much. Thank you. But yeah, shout out to all the people in marketing and development, XDev, all the different studios that listen to the show. I was speaking to someone recently working on Grand Theft Auto 6 that listens to the show. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. And man, imagine how big that's going to be when that game is announced. That game is it's like this figment of my imagination still. We know it's real. They've acknowledged it. Things leaked from it. So we've seen it, or at least what it used to look like, if not what it looks like now. And that game is going to be a phenomenon. And I don't know. It's going to be crazy. It's crazy how there's so little to say right now. And yet there's all these looming promises that we are going to start being able to pick at. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
I will be back in a second. I got to get a Benadryl because I'm about to die.
Yeah, go for it.
That's what I was telling Chris before the show. Allergy season turned on overnight, and we're on different sides of the country. I'm dying right now.
Yeah, I think in California, it's like palm, especially like palm pollen is like pretty intense. As I recall, it's bad for dogs too out there. And the pollen, the weather's been kind of weird out here because it started getting southern hot. And then it just was like, no, never mind. And now it's like 60s.
It gets a different kind of hot down here.
Well, down here in the South, we have a bit of a different kind of summer. What you might call an Indian summer.
Some of that dry heat down here.
There's a sort of down in the bayou. There's a sort of humidity down there amongst the critters and the bugs.
Chris has
Are you
returned.
right?
I'm
Welcome
right.
back.
I'm back.
We just fell right back into Southern Man. So
Good.
yeah. All right. Let's see here. Thank you for writing in, James. We appreciate you. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime, a modern suite of basic banking services we can all use. You can learn more right now at chime.com/sacred. My friends, don't let the hippies and lowlives around you convince you otherwise. Money matters, and your money really matters. And you've got to be smart with it. How you save it, how you spend it, and more. This isn't a fantasy world where it's all irrelevant. Quite the contrary. If you fail to take good care of your money, then life's going to be pretty hard. Good news then that Chime can help you with all you need to get your banking adventures moving. See, with Chime, you can set up a checking account, a savings account, and even get a debit card or credit card. As far as I'm concerned, these 4 options represent the most basic things you need to be doing with your money. Reliably and safely socking some of it away, making credit work for you, and being able to interact with the modern economy by way of both debit and credit. That's pretty much all most of you hearing this message actually need out of a bank. And when you wrap it all up into an award-winning, easy-to-use app, well, you realize that Chime can be a lifesaver, especially with all the perks they offer, like accessing your paycheck 2 days early or fee-free overdrafts up to $200. As a firm believer in financial sanity, I'm stoked that Chime is out here tending to basic banking needs and not making things too complicated. Chime is reliable, official, modern, and FDIC insured. So why not see what they can offer you? Sign up for a Chime checking account today to link your paycheck. It only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/sacred. Again, for a checking account, savings account, debit and credit cards, and more, head to chime.com/sacred. Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. See chime.com/spotme. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Athletic Greens and their AG1 supplement, which you can discover for yourself at athleticgreens.com/sacred. For as much as I love to work out, I know I can be doing even more for my health, especially as I approach the dreaded 4-0 next year. After all, as the old saying goes, you simply cannot outrun what you eat, though that certainly hasn't stopped me from trying. Eating right is the most fundamental part of taking care of yourself, a facet of life that we potentially have the most control over. But not enough of us make the right choices in what we're putting into our bodies. What I realize, though, is that it's all about doing little things, making sustainable changes that become part of a healthier routine. In other words, a welcome addition to your life, not some sort of albatross around your neck that you don't want to do to begin with. With Athletic Greens and their AG1 formula, you can join millions of people around the world who have discovered the remarkable benefits of this high-quality, all-natural supplement. So here's the rub. AG1 is a powder that you mix into a glass of water and drink every day. When you do, you'll be flooding your body with an insane 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source superfoods that easily fit into a host of dietary restrictions and lifestyle choices. Whether you're looking for more energy before a workout, which is my primary use for AG1, or you're simply trying to eat better, improve your mood, and even discover the wonders of healthier hair, nails, and skin, Athletic Greens has an angle for you. But really, it all boils down to doing what's healthiest. And when I take AG1, I really notice the difference, especially in that pre-workout window when I am really starting to drain my energy reserves late in the day. As someone with lifelong stomach and colon issues, I also appreciate that Athletic Greens happens to be great for gut health too. It's like a quadruple-edged sword, if such a thing exists. My friends, AG1 is easy to drink, tastes good, and has myriad health benefits that I really think can help you out. If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs of AG1 with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/sacred. That's athleticgreens.com/sacred. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/sacred for a high-quality, healthy supplement that can help you live your best life. Check it out. Corey Dustin has an interesting question. I want to know what Dustin thinks of this. What's up, my beautiful CDC? Questions for Colin and Dustin. Last week, Colin mentioned how he loves getting dirty out in the yard. Oh, as a new homeowner here in Texas since last year, I'm sorry, I have struggled with what to do with my lawn clippings. Do I throw them away in a trash bag? Do I just blow the shit out of the street? I know there are laws against that, but curious what etiquette stance you and Dustin take to handle this task. As always, appreciate you guys and sending much love. Dustin, what do you do with your lawn clippings?
So my lawnmower is one that has the bag in the back that catches it all.
I have that too.
So that's essential. And here's the thing. I can't stand it when I'm walking around, walking the dog, and people leave their grass all over the sidewalk. Clean that shit up. Sweep it up. I don't care. I know you're hot and sweaty after you're done mowing your lawn. It's part of the job. Do it.
Yep. I would argue it's the most gratifying part of the job, by the way. It's like the last touches to make it look good.
Absolutely. Now, as far as what I do with them, recently Holly's been doing this thing where she read online about how for her garden that it can act as like an insulator or some kind of she wants to put the grass clippings on top of the not flower beds, but where she grows vegetables and stuff, because it can, I don't know, keep moisture in or something. It helps the dirt not dry out. So a lot of times it'll just go right on top of the garden, and the rest goes in a trash bag.
What are you growing this year? What kind of crops? Cash crops?
So that's all Holly. Holly loves gardening and stuff like that. But I know that it's a big thing for us to do tomatoes, because Holly makes some really good chipotle salsa. So that's a big thing. And then I think she's doing peppers as well, a couple other things. So it's nice.
Yeah, Micah's got like zucchini and kale going right now and some things like that. Yeah, so the grass clippings, this is funny you say that. I'm so glad you preached on it, because you can tell if a person's mowing a lawn for utilitarian reasons or for aesthetic reasons, depending on if they give a shit about the lawn clippings. And in my neighborhood, it's the same thing. People like mow their lawns, these nice houses, and then there's just lawn clippings everywhere. It's like, clean your fucking yard up. What are you doing? Why even bother? If you're gonna do this, you got to bag it. And I just throw it away. I just put it in bags and throw it away. But there are people in my neighborhood. So there are houses, and then there's like these big open. You've been there, Dustin, like these big open like spaces, and people with woods and everything. And people just go in and just dump all their fucking grass clippings in there. And I was actually pointing it out yesterday. I thought it was funny because there are trees like sprouting out of them like mega fast, and I'm like, man, the tree, whatever's growing in this fucking festering pile of lawn clippings from every house in the neighborhood is spawning some crazy growth out there in the woods. But for me, I just like throwing it in the garbage. And actually, my neighbor I was having beers with the other day, she was telling me like, oh, we think you're not supposed to throw your lawn clippings out. I'm like, is that true? Why not? That's like, they're literally backing these trucks into fucking holes in the ground and burying it. Wouldn't you want grass clippings? Wouldn't that be like the best thing you would want?
Yeah.
It's probably as good as having lime or a dead body in there. It's going to decompose quicker than anything else. It's fucking styrofoam is going to be in there for 50,000 from Chick-fil-A for 50,000 years.
Yeah. I remember when I would mow, because my parents, my mom and dad, they have, their house has like 4 acres. It's like huge. It's like a lot of space, but only like 2 acres of that is like lawn. The rest of it's like woods. What we would do is we would mow the lawn, and we would go to the back of the woods and just dump all that shit in the back of the woods, like far away. And that would always work pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever threw our stuff away. I think the main reason was because we don't want to fill the bag up. We don't want to fill.
Oh no, totally. Like I mow my lawns I mow my lawn on Mondays because the garbage comes Tuesday morning. So after I'm done, see, this is what I was saying, Dustin, is after I'm done, I'm out there with the blower, I'm sweeping, I'm gathering everything up, all the little last touches, and then I bring the garbage right out to the curb, drop the grass clippings bags right in the garbage at the top, and then they take it away. And then the next day I get the empty garbage can, the lawn's nice and clean, you start the process again.
You should put your grass in a Vitamix and drink it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
What is that grass that people buy? That tea?
That.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about? It looks like grass. Like you find like health food stores and shit, and it like grows out of like dirt, and I think you eat it.
Oh,
alfalfa.
Alfalfa. I was gonna say alfalfa, but I was worried I was gonna sound dumb. But that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
My mom was really into health food stores, but like in the 80s and early 90s, where it was like really weird.
Oh,
I still remember it, like where that wasn't a thing yet. So it was like the most granola Portlandia shit you could possibly imagine going on in those places. All right, my friend. Corey, thank you for writing in. Oh, that's the etiquette, by the way. Clean up after yourself. Yeah. I go as far as I blow, with the blower, but Ooh. I even sweep the street in front of my house to get all the shit up. Because like if I just blow it, then it just goes to someone else's space.
Yeah.
It's just rude. You don't want to do that. Be a good neighbor. Keenan Delaney wrote in. Said, "Hi, Sacred Boys. My question is for Colin. I noticed that you recently changed your PSN name to Long Island Viper. I've been wanting to change my PSN name, and I'm worried it will have an effect on any trophies I have earned. Has changing your PSN name affected anything, or has it been pretty seamless? Love the show and look forward to it every week." As far as I understand, so I did change my name finally, and as far as I understand, it doesn't affect anything you've earned. It may affect your ability to use saves on old consoles, which will affect your ability to access trophies on those consoles. But I think that you have the ability to go back to your old name if you really need to work that around and like use a PS3 save or whatever. I finally have just moved on because I've just kind of decided, as I said last week, I'm over this. I'm like waiting around for PS3 and Vita, and like I'm not quite done with them yet. I'm going to keep my Moriarty IGN name forever. I haven't worked at IGN since 2014. I think it's time, 9 years ago. So I think it's time to say goodbye to that name. And I finally did Long Island Viper. You can always check me out on PSN if you'd like to see what I'm playing. Appreciate that. Some people were freaked out. They're like, what happened to Colin's trophies? PSN profiles doesn't, for security reasons, doesn't tell people, like doesn't give them a forward. So when you go to Moriarty-IGN on there, it's just gone. And I was like, well, I died. If that's how it works, I'm tethered to it to such a degree. When my name disappears on PSN, I'm dead.
Yeah, it's like a kill switch. When your heart stops beating, all your trophies go away.
Or all my trophies go away. They just go right into the air. Shiny objects.
Bury me with my trophies.
And they just bury me with like a thumb drive.
Yeah. And you're excavated in like however many hundreds of years, and they plug your stupid flash drive in, and it's just all these meaningless these video game achievements.
Yeah, they have to like go find the old tech. They have to go find like the old USB 3.0 drive, and
that's awesome.
And they think it's something like really poignant, meaningful. Yeah. It's all this work. It's like someone's academic study for their PhD.
Nope.
All right. Yeah, sorry to disappoint. It's funny that anyone can turn into a PhD for an anthropologist or archaeologist, but just by dying and being in the ground for a while. And then they'll be like, yeah, we're going to dig this dude up, study him. What they'll find is a big dong when they dig me up, by the way.
The dong stays behind.
Yep.
Even when you decay, the penis remains.
You know when Jesus disappeared and he left the shroud of Turin behind?
Right.
I'm going to leave behind just my big dong. That's it. But the rest of me is gone.
Balls included or just dong?
No, just dong.
Just the
I'm
shaft.
taking my balls with me.
Yeah. Don't be ridiculous.
What do you think this is? Alexander Javier Ospino. It's time to get into the news. There's a lot for us to talk through this week. So we might as well begin. But we have a correction. Alexander Javier Ospino wrote in and said, Colin, I have a correction for the show 2 weeks ago that hopefully isn't too pedantic. It actually isn't. He says, when discussing this Microsoft Activision deal, the more cooperative side of the Sony and Microsoft relationship was brought up. Specifically, you mentioned that Sony publishes MLB The Show on Xbox. This is not strictly true. I discovered a few weeks ago that according to the Xbox store page, the game is published by the MLB itself. There is no Sony or PlayStation splash screen upon starting the game. It's also very interesting. And the developer is listed as San Diego Studio, which is, of course, the formal name for Sony San Diego. I just thought the lengths gone through to disassociate Sony from its own game on Xbox were interesting. The same appears to have been done on Switch. Thanks for your hard work as always. You're right. I went and looked into this because some people have written in about this and I just kind of forgotten about it. Is that MLB acts as the extractive publisher of that game outside of PlayStation's ecosystem. So it's actually kind of an old school thing. You guys might remember, it still happens sometimes. It happens especially with Japanese games, but where depending on where a game is released, it just has a different publisher. And so you go on Wikipedia and look at a PS2 game and it's got like 5 different publishers. MLB The Show is kind of that sort of thing, although it only has 2. But this is how they bridge the gap. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
But really, like the PlayStation splash screen isn't on MLB because I feel like I specifically remember, at least for last year's.
Yeah, I think like maybe this year they got rid of it or something. Dustin, you're nodding.
Yeah, it was definitely in last year because I booted it up on stream and was like, whoa.
It's weird. I remember feeling weird about it and being like, ooh, this is kind of insane to see.
The beef is real. So I think that they're going to look for ways to kind of get away from each other more and more. And yeah, because I thought I remembered that too, but you're right that the publisher is MLB. It has always been actually on those platforms, the MLB. And it might be now that they've gotten the Switch version out, and which is so fucking funny that Sony San Diego is making a Switch game. It's like, oh my God, let's make a PSP game. But they, I'm also curious, by the way, backtracking, I'm not even going to finish that other comment. I'm also wondering, how is it selling on Switch?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like if you don't give a shit about fidelity so much, and I can imagine not caring so much about it in a baseball game. I mean, that is a big part. The aesthetic is a big part of sports games, but really it's the depth of the game, the mechanics.
Yeah.
Statistical depth, campaigns, all that. Or not even campaigns, but, seasons. I can see it being very attractive on Switch. Like very, very attractive, actually. So I'll be interested to see if maybe they'll never spin it out, and who knows. All right, my friends. So I don't want to talk about this too deeply, although we should get some thoughts out on it. A lot of people did write in about it. So DarkRod99 will go with you. He says, hello, CDC. Now that CMA is blocking the ABK deal, do you think this will put a dent on the moves Microsoft is doing recently to buy big publishers so they can produce content for Game Pass? Or do you think the acquisitions plans for Microsoft will continue as normal? Also, what's with all these threats both companies are doing about pulling out investments in the UK? Isn't the CMA independent from the government? Thanks for reading and have a nice day. A few things to pull out here, Dark Rod. Thank you for writing in. A nice name. So, yes, the CMA, I have that open here. The Competition and Markets Authority, this is the economic regulatory body in the UK. They were expected on this long saga of an Activision Blizzard acquisition from Microsoft. They were expected to kind of give their approval this past week from when we're recording. So these past days from when we're recording and publishing this on Patreon to confirm Microsoft's acquisition, $68.7 billion USD for Activision Blizzard King. But they actually came out and said, no, you can't. And this was a huge surprise and could be the death knell of this deal. This is the most legitimate barrier that has been presented to the deal happening yet. And people have been quick to point out that Phil Spencer and others had said recently that they're more confident than they were last year that the deal is going to come through. Well, that has been smashed in the face by the reality of this. Now, I want to say this, and I really want to get your guys' thoughts on this, is, first of all, we remain out of our depth in talking about these things in a holistic economic way. We can talk about it politically, certainly talk about it for our industry, but we'll defer to Hogue and his coverage, both on virtual legality and hopefully have him back on the show to get into what it means from all those angles from a mergers and acquisition point of view and a legalistic point of view, because I don't want to speak to that. But what I will say is this. Experts in the industry have been completely wrong about this over and 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 over again. And I don't know what that means. And I'm not talking about Hogue, because Hogue's not the industry analyst I'm talking about. I'm reading stuff on gamesindustry.biz the entire time this is going on. And gamesindustry.biz is like a hallmark site for the games industry. And these people are just fucking dead wrong over and over again about all their prognostications. I don't know what that's all about, but it makes it very hard to get any sort of feel or even be able to plan a mental approach to what you want to say about something, because it seems like everything they say is wrong. And so I'm going just straight gut now based on like how many, you can't piss on a person and then tell it's raining over and over again to the point where I'm like, I feel like this is dead, right? Like this is the exact opposite of what we said was going to happen. But maybe there's going to be things that can be overcome. You read some things saying that the CMA, they promised that they were going to appeal, and the CMA apparently it's almost unappealable. Like it's not possible. Like you can only get them apparently on process. You can't get them on their decision. So you have to like go into the process apparently and find some sort of loophole or some sort of thing that was wrong. And apparently they never overturn shit. They're also completely separate, apparently, like the FTC the FTC is a little more intertwined with the American government than it is here. So I wanted to point that out, that I just feel like the press and the different analysts and people that they're talking to at all these industry firms and everything, they don't know what they're talking about, I guess. And that's concerning, because we need better guidance on the way that the nexus of the way the industry interacts with the outside world. And we can't rely on it. So that's like a big thing I take away from it, is that I feel like this deal has put a lot of people out of their depth completely. And I just want to acknowledge that I am out of my depth when it comes to the more academic angle that's involved in this. So I just think that's important to point out. As far as the deal going south, my major concern now is what Microsoft does now, because they were going to buy things anyway. Hogue said that nothing was going to stop them from buying things. And of course, Activision Blizzard going through would have been the rubber stamp to buy whatever you want. I mean, why, if you can buy the biggest publisher, why wouldn't you be able to buy the second, third, fourth, or fifth biggest publishers? There's nothing stopping you from really doing that. But what makes me scared is kind of a PlayStation gamer who has been very serendipitously unaffected by Microsoft's moves, whether it's with Bethesda, which is not really a publisher I get down with the exception of maybe some machine game stuff, and with Activision, which I don't really give a shit about at all, is that now that eye of Sauron is no doubt going to fucking focus on something I care about. And because there aren't that many targets left that I don't care about. Right. They basically got two of the targets that were safe. And it's like, well, if you go in towards Take-Two or EA or whatever, it's like, well, now you're starting to affect me. And I kind of lament that a little bit. But those are my thoughts. Chris, what do you think about this news? We don't have to linger on it too long. We'll leave it mostly to the Dukes, but you have anything you'd like to say?
I think, and I'm not sure if this is entirely accurate, but I read that it was the main reason why it didn't go through was cloud concerns.
That's right.
Which to me felt like it's an interesting situation because, like, we've mentioned that a lot of the press doesn't seem to know what they're talking about, in the sense that this deal is, or a lot of the predictions made about this deal largely didn't come to pass, or came to pass in a very, very different way than was predicted. But this does feel to me, the whole cloud concerns angle feels a little bit to me like the CEO of TikTok being interviewed at that trial thing, where the guy was like, "So you're saying TikTok attaches to my Wi-Fi network? Can it see?" You know what I mean? It's like cloud concerns are literally the least concerning aspect of this. And I think it's largely a lot of people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, who are also simultaneously in charge of making sure this deal goes through or doesn't go through. Cloud concerns makes no sense to me as a reason to block the deal. And I don't think anybody would have predicted that, because it seems so inept that would be the reason. It is weird. It's. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. No. I mean, that's really all I was going to say. It's crazy.
I was gonna add to that, Chris, because I think it's a great point, an important point that we need to bring up. Of course, is the cloud concerns, but this brings into, because we have a second funny inquiry here that I guess I'll just read now, where it says Skin Tight Salmon says, with the CMA blocking Microsoft from acquiring ABK is a time that Jim Cryan Ryan graduates from his nickname, possibly Jim Denyin Ryan. I am. No, Crying Jim's always going to be Crying Jim, but it's also that from the way I read it, is that Sony's argument was not germane to this. It was actually unknown third parties. And that was what I was reading, is that there are other people, or I shouldn't say people, other organizations that were fighting against this behind the scenes that have not taken a prominent role or a front-facing role. It could be other gaming entities. It could be other mega companies like Google or Oracle or something like that. But it seems like those more silent arguments were the ones that counted. And you read from that it's probably bigger tech companies that have a problem with this. And of course, Google is going to want to fucking kneecap Microsoft. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, that's probably the company they want to kneecap more than anyone. So, because they're the biggest threat, I would imagine, to Google. So there is a lot of weirdness going on and a lot of manipulation. I think you're right, Chris, of people not really understanding it. But I also don't want to overstate that, because I also wouldn't be surprised if these people at the CMA, who are smart, no doubt, educated people, if I sat with them and they had a very deep understanding. So I don't quite know in what direction we go, and everything's redacted, so we can't even see. Right. Like, God, it's so frustrating that no one leaked any of the stuff, or we didn't have an Apple Epic kind of situation where they didn't know to redact it, because we're missing so much information. It's quite frustrating. Yeah. I fail to see how, like, there are way bigger concerns about Microsoft owning Activision than cloud. Like, to me, Activision plays almost zero part in Microsoft's cloud game at all.
Like I fail to see how it would even really bolster them at all, outside from just having more content for their cloud. But it's not really. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird reason for the decision. And I know that they're obviously like you said, there's definitely Google's definitely in the mix here, clearly.
It says
as well as other people.
Because I was going to say, Chris, to your point, here on gov.uk and the official release that they released of this is Microsoft's solution has significant shortcomings and would require regulatory oversight by CMA. Quote, cloud gaming needs a free competitive market to drive innovation and choice. So I think the angle, and people can go read it, it's quite easy, and there are remedies and all these different ideas, but that I think would be unsatisfactory to Microsoft, because ideas are being floated like you can't have Call of Duty on Game Pass, or you can't raise the price of Game Pass. I don't know if you guys have been seeing any of this stuff that's been going around, but I just don't know if Microsoft would want to make agreements like that, and segmenting their stuff and cutting it up. As I understand, something like this might have happened with other brands like HBO in the UK in the past. But I don't know enough about that to speak on it too carefully. So people can go read about it themselves. But it is interesting because it doesn't, again, seem like they worry about gaming content as far as being on Game Pass as much of its availability on cloud gaming. Because if you go with the CMA, and I'll throw it over to you, Dustin, it says cloud gaming concerns. And then a few paragraphs down, it said the deal would reinforce Microsoft's advantage in the market by giving it control over important gaming content such as Call of Duty, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft. Activision would start providing games via cloud platforms in the foreseeable future. They're basically going after a hypothetical. I think what they're trying to do is like not have a problem in 10 or 20 years, and to say like we anticipate that this problem will exist now, which is the job of regulatory bodies, but it's hard to kind of prognosticate this way because, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say like, well, let's say this doesn't. Let's say it's dead, right? What happens now that Activision is clearly looking to be bought?
I don't know. Maybe they split. Maybe. I think a viable way forward, and was something that was suggested, I think earlier, was splitting the company up, into like having a Pokemon company like entity that would control Call of Duty. Pokemon isn't owned by Nintendo. Nintendo's partially the owner of it. And so maybe that would be the safest way forward. But on the other hand, you would never see a Pokemon game on PlayStation. So it's not like they've leveraged that in any way. And no one's expected them to.
I don't know, man.
But maybe that would be some sort of remedy. I don't know.
My concern is the same concern it's always been, where it's Activision is clearly in a place looking to sell. And if Microsoft can't get them, I mean, Tencent's sitting there with a ton of money, a stupid amount of money, and it probably wouldn't even really raise many regulatory concerns, because I would imagine a lot of people were like, "Who the fuck is Tencent even?" They don't have a console,
Yeah, I think that there would be serious regulatory issues with China, but I don't think that there would be any concerns about monopolies,
right?
Or like some sort of foreclosure. In fact, a Tencent acquisition would almost suggest a permanent third-party solution for Activision, which is basically the status quo.
Yeah, but it's also Tencent status quo. You know what I mean? It would make so many things uncomfortable.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I want Tencent to disappear from the face of the planet. So I don't want them expanding and growing, especially on our shores.
Level infinite, Colin.
Yeah, level infinite, of course.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
But I think that what you're talking about is entirely possible. And I'm not quite entirely sure if there would be a valid regulatory way to stop that from happening. I think there would be geopolitical concerns, but I think that would just be like a hearing in the Senate or something, or the House, I should say. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah. So touching on some of the cloud gaming stuff, and I'm not reading this information to defend it, but I think it's worth understanding some of the context. And this comes from the gov.uk website, where their argument is that the monthly users of cloud has tripled from 2021 to 2022. And now it's an 11 billion pound globally market and 1 billion pounds in the UK. And their argument is that Microsoft already owns estimated 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market. And so I think their argument is saying we're seeing this vertical of this growing at an extreme rate, and Microsoft already owns a majority of it. And this will only, and then Colin brought up about the content advantage of games, and they mentioned Call of Duty, Overwatch, World of Warcraft. Again, I think that you're right, Chris, and that I'm not fully sure if this makes sense, but I can understand their argument based on the growth we're seeing of cloud. And that's the thing, the three of us don't care about cloud stuff. And I think we talked about it a few weeks back that I feel positive that cloud is going to continue to grow and be really big. It just is. It's going to take the right mixture for it to happen. Google had a lot of the elements right. The tech from Google was good. It was the most impressive version of cloud gaming we've seen yet, but they did not have the other elements right. And so maybe Microsoft in the coming years will. And I think that could change the conversation.
Yeah.
The other thing that I just wanted to say on this deal overall, and I guess I'm just kind of echoing what you said, Colin, but I think it's worth reiterating that everyone has been wrong about this deal. And so I think there's a few different ways we can look at that. I think that primarily the one thing that I would maybe, I don't know, it sounds weird to say challenge you, Colin, but to think about in a different way is that, and I don't know if this is the case, but maybe because this deal is the biggest deal in history, that the rule book and what would be expected is different. So even the experts are in uncharted territory, and that's why they don't know anything. And that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, just in the fact that we've never seen a deal anywhere near the size of something like this.
There's no.
So I would imagine
no
it would be a different circumstance as far as the regulatory aspects. And I think it's worth reiterating, Colin, just because I saw some of this in our Discord, and so I'm guessing that some listeners of this will think this. We're not trying to discredit Hogue or anyone else who gave their opinion about what they thought was going to happen. And that's kind of what to sum this all up, is that's what's so interesting to me, is that you have people that you would think would know and have shown through their profession that they would know, and even they don't. And it's not saying they're stupid. It just goes to show how crazy this deal is in the first place. So
yeah,
that's the thing. I want to say we'll see, because something like this has never been overturned, and so it's done. But everything before this has shown us that we cannot make any prediction. So to me, it practically feels like a 50-50 chance still this deal could happen, because anytime there's, common wisdom says this, it's not true. So we're just going to keep waiting and see what happens.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Babbel, the award-winning language learning app that can help you learn one of 14 global languages right now at babbel.com/sacred. While I no doubt have some sort of mastery over the English language, that's just because it's what I was natively taught. Learning a second language is a whole different beast, as so many of us learn in middle school and high school and even in college, when we spend scores of hours in foreign language classes learning and retaining virtually nothing. But my friends at Babbel are striving to change all of that, with sensical and sensible language learning content tailor-made to craft a steady foundation and building upon it from there. Instead of studying for the next test, a la my experiences with French for years, you learn a new language using Babbel more practically, more conversationally, more logically. When I started using their French module, not only did I have a blast shaking off the rust after so many years of dormancy, but I quickly garnered some of Babbel's secret sauce. They switch things up, keep things quick, and focus on your engagement. That means you'll be learning your languages not only through classes, some of which are even live, but through stories, videos, games, podcasts, and so much more. That level of dynamism matches the dynamics you'll meet out in the real world, when you can wield your newfound language skills with confidence. From Spanish to Russian to Portuguese, having more than a dozen language options available to you means you can linguistically touch just about every corner of the globe. And with a 20-day money-back guarantee, you really have nothing to lose to see if Babbel's right for you. Right now, get up to 55% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/sacred. That's babbel.com/sacred. That's babbel.com/sacred for up to 55% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Liquid IV, the exceptional way to stay hydrated and energetic. Learn more now at liquidiv.com using the promo code SACRED at checkout. It's me, Micah, Last Dance coordinator and shopkeep and Colin's fiance. A couple of months ago, Colin let me know about a new sponsorship the show was getting and that he thought I'd be perfect to try it out and give it a go. It turns out Colin was right. So what is Liquid IV? Well, it's a powder that you mix into a glass of water. You drink it, naturally, and it hydrates you better, quicker, and more effectively than mere water. Indeed, it works about twice as quickly as boring old water to get you perked and refreshed, and since it's fortified with 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and everyone's favorite C, it's healthier than a mere glass of water, too. I know Colin often talks about how he likes to work out in his ads, and I'm the same way. I'm in our home gym most days riding my stationary bike, doing bar, stretching, and more. So I have a similar need for my own workout routines, and just drinking water doesn't cut it. Replacing whatever I was drinking before with Liquid IV had obvious positive effects on my energy level and hydration, and as someone who has used quite a few different supplements in the past, the quality found here is obvious. Of course, I'm not the only one who likes drinking Liquid IV. The brand has sold nearly 40 million servings around the world, and I'm also likely not the only person unable to pick what my favorite flavor is. You have more than 10 choices: Concord grape, strawberry lemonade, tropical punch, and my personal favorite, watermelon. Packed with ever-valuable electrolytes, made with premium ingredients, and free of common allergens like soy, gluten, and dairy, Liquid IV can help better hydrate you right now. I highly recommend it. In fact, I love Liquid IV. Grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code SACRED at checkout. That's liquidiv.com with the checkout code SACRED. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code SACRED at liquidiv.com.
To me, I hear what you're saying, but I think that the ping-ponging of opinion has to stop somewhere where you have to identify that there's been just over-optimism every step of the way. And so you can't just ping-pong back and forth. Eventually, you have to realize that maybe it's just generally over-optimistic that this was ever going to happen. But who knows? I mean, who knows? It's like what you said. It's like, I have no fucking idea, really. But it seems like this is a good thing for the industry to keep Activision independent. Yeah, they might be seeking buyers, but it could also be that Microsoft approached them and offered to pay them quite a bit of money above their share price to buy the company outright. They might just be happy to go back on the market and continue and maybe court some other buyer. I think that there is a geopolitical risk and certainly an aesthetic risk to getting in bed with a Chinese company. I think that that's going to be a very dangerous game to play for these companies, but I don't think it's going to be illegal. So no, there is that option, but there's also, I think Blizzard's being sued by Tencent or NetEase or one of those companies that they worked with in China over the removal of World of Warcraft from China and a bunch of other shit. So there are dynamics at play that we don't understand. But the one thing I will say here is that I feel like this is pretty obvious. The one thing that is true out of all of this, even if it's delayed and pushed into 2024 or later this year, they finally get it done, is this has royally fucked Microsoft. If Sony's entire strategy was to buy time, they've succeeded. If they really wanted to shut it down, then they haven't succeeded yet. But if the entire intent is to like just buy us 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, we'll start consolidating as they've been consolidating their own studios that are in orbit around them. We start getting our games as a service more ready. We start making these more careful investments, and at least we're a couple of years ahead of them from when they get this, and we can be better planning and better strategically and all of that. This certainly completely hamstrings Microsoft. Like their public assumptions, assuming their public assumptions that are also their private assumptions, means that they thought that this thing was going to be done, and they were already announcing it. I mean, there are fucking like Xbox Wired things and tweets from people being like, we're thrilled to welcome it into the family. It's like, I would imagine that this is a very chaotic situation for them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say puts Xbox in danger, but because Microsoft just had their financials and Microsoft's doing excellent as a company, absolutely excellent, just making hand over fist money. But you have to wonder what it means for the near future of Xbox games, because they were really counting on this. And I wonder if their strategy internally for Game Pass and other things were going to assume that they were going to subsume this content onto their streams, which they're not going to be able to do now, at least for a little while longer, at the very least. Yeah. So I think that, and from that point of view, you can't, if you're a PlayStation fan, or if you're a Sony shareholder, you're someone certainly inside that company, you can't be too upset about the outcome so far. And even though they're not at the phalanx of, the tip of the spear in what pierced the armor of this argument, they still got a body blow in nonetheless. And it's going to benefit them a lot because Sony hasn't been making desperate moves like that. And if there's one thing that I'm positive about, it's that the deal to buy Activision is a desperate move. It was the second it was announced. You're going right to the very top. Like, you are trying to buy the biggest thing, not unlike Microsoft, of course. But we'll leave it mostly to the Dukes to speak about this. I don't know that there's too much more to say about it. I think that it could have some complicating and mitigating effects with announcement plans for both sides, as they don't want to make themselves look like they're, with third-party exclusives, second-party exclusives, whatever the case might be, announcements. I do think that part of that plays into why we haven't heard more, but I think you can only hold out for so long. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, I think there's just the general issue of if they're going to turn their focus onto some other entities.
Yeah.
And what that means and what that looks like. And that sucks because the market reality is that Xbox hasn't resonated to anywhere the degree that PlayStation has over the previous generations. And that requires a bettering of the product. And if they don't feel like they can do that internally, then there's no doubt that they're going to be twice as aggressive getting it done externally. And in fact, it's going to be more urgent than ever if their pipeline is as clogged and as fucked up as it seems. So I don't know. It's interesting. And I'm just, I all things being equal, I wish this kind of just went through, because we wasted so much time on it, talking about it, all the rest, and guessing and dedicating resources to this on the show. It is interesting, but also because, again, it just exposes all the other publishers now. And again, it'll be up to them whether they sell or not, of course, but not so much if people are just offering you absurd amounts of money. And if there's one thing that's certain, it's that Microsoft has an absurd amount of money. It's just that Xbox isn't making that absurd amount of money. Every other part of Microsoft is making it. And then Xbox is taking it, injecting it into the video game industry, even though it's unearned, and then changing the name of the game or trying to change the rules of engagement. And it's not working. But I think you're right, Dustin. It's probably a coin flip. But I think Sony would be pretty thrilled with that at this name at this point in the game. So anyway, tune into the Dukes. I know that they probably had a lot to say about it on their recent episode. All right, my friends, let's move on to a couple of other things here to talk about. PlayStation announced this in passing. There's going to be a Final Fantasy XVI bundle for PlayStation 5, which you can buy from direct.playstation.com beginning May 4th. I don't know if people are going to be interested in this, but there's a cool controller that's only in Japan, apparently. I don't know if you guys saw a picture of it.
Yeah,
and maybe a case, but it's not going to be released here, apparently. So if you're looking to buy a PlayStation 5, that might be a good way for you to get in. You can begin pre-ordering that in early May, like I said. I don't know if you guys saw this story. This has been circulating in kind of PlayStation circles, but it comes from the website Segment Next. And they write, Sony patents a detachable optical disk drive for the PS5? Question mark. So they point to a patent that was recently applied for here in the United States. And it shows very clearly an optical disk drive that can be mounted in electronic equipment, such as a game machine, personal computer, or audiovisual equipment. And this seems to kind of be maybe the missing link in this rumor. So what do we think, Dustin? Diskless or detachable disk drive for PS5. So a future SKU of diskless, a new SKU of diskless PS5, but made to potentially work with a drive of its own. I think it's a pretty interesting idea. I wonder if people will be down with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, just in that it's always been weird seeing the availability between the two SKUs. I've never actually seen a digital PlayStation 5 in the store. Obviously PS5 is more recently available in stores, but I never see digital versions available. And maybe that's part of the idea, is that if you're buying a PlayStation 5 at brick and mortar, then you're most likely going to want games that you buy also at brick and mortar. But I like this from a perspective, not that disk drives fail all the time, but it is a good thing for repairability of the console. If your disk drive goes, you can get a new one, you can put it in. I think that's a good thing. Sony, I think, has been somewhat forward thinking in this, also thinking about the way you expand storage in the PlayStation 5 and not requiring a proprietary solution like Xbox right now, which apparently they are starting to release different SSDs for the Xbox, but for a long time, it was only the one from Seagate that quickly became rapidly overpriced, whereas PlayStation has a lot more open system for that. So I always think that should be applauded. And yeah, I'm curious to see how this will look in the final unit and how it will become seamless. Because the other reporting on it really indicated that it's not going to be like the HD DVD disk drive for the 360 where it's a separate thing that sits beside it. It's going to be integrated and attached to the console in some way. And that sounds cool. I want it to look clean. And so that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, as long as it's easy for people to do, which I imagine it will be. I always picture the Genesis as this, because like you could just plug so many things into it, but it was very intuitive. And so I imagine that they'll have that handled. Chris, any thoughts about the Sony patent and the idea of the diskless PS5? It seems like it's happening. I mean, and again, to reiterate, we already have a diskless PS5, but as we've noted, one that is modular.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of modular consoles. I owe it like generally as a premise, but also there's something about taking a $500 piece of equipment or a $400 piece of equipment, right? Like a really expensive piece of hardware, taking something out and putting something back in and taking something out and putting something back in that feels like you're just maximizing the possibility of breaking something. So like, to me, this doesn't interest me at all personally, but I do think it's cool to have like modularity in general. I don't know necessarily what the point of a disk drive being modular would be, because it's not like you have other options. It's just it's gonna do what it does. I could see like from like a hard drive perspective. That's what I loved so much about the 360 hard drive, was that you could just like snap it out of the top and snap it in. And
yeah, it was very cool.
It was super cool, and you
it was
have
very
different
cool.
sizes.
It was very useful at IGN. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. It's super cool, but I don't know. I like the idea. I like the philosophy here. I just I will not have use for this because I just don't use discs at all. So I mean, it's cool though. I like the idea of modular consoles. Always have.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead, actually, since we're talking about discs. This might make more sense here. Is physical copies of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which comes out very shortly, getting great reviews, by the way, requires massive download to play day one. And Josiah wrote in, as many people did on Patreon, said, hey, fellas, note that you've seen that Jedi Survivor's file size comes in at a whopping 150 gigs, beating out even the most recent Call of Duty. Given this is a single-player current-gen only game, is this simply an anomaly, or does it portend a grimmer future for game sizes that we previously accounted for? The increased demand for high-fidelity graphics, audio, AI, and more may point to the latter, but would love to hear your thoughts. Shout out to Trees. Of course, Josiah, shout out to Trees. Thank you for writing in. Yeah, I couldn't believe, guys, the size of the game, and then I couldn't believe that when you buy the disc, because of the size of the game, you have to download a package. You cannot play it without connecting to the internet. So... Yeah,
the game can't fit on the disc, right?
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. I don't think there has been a PS5 game released on 2 discs. I'm not even sure there was a PS4 game released on 2 discs, but I could be wrong about that.
Tons.
Wait, really?
Red Dead Redemption, Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, okay.
There was another one I can't think of, but those are 2 huge games that came on 2 discs.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Mostly because I've never bought a PS4 game in my life, and physically, so I have no idea even what that would look like. Is it like a thing in the side?
It's got the flap in the center.
Oh, okay. So it's like the same thickness.
Right.
Oh, okay. So it's, because it would have been cool is to release a case like the old PS1 cases.
Chunky.
Like those iconic chunky cases.
Yeah.
I love those.
Like the Metal Gear Solid case.
So we have PS4 games on 2 discs. Okay. So we don't have PS5 games on 2 discs, I don't think.
Not
now,
yet.
I could be wrong about that too. But it does seem strange to me. This is a real kneecapping of the entire idea of having a physical game. Like if you buy the physical version of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, you do not have the game. Like you cannot play it in perpetuity. So you might as well just buy the digital version of the game.
No, I bring up the same argument for this every time. People want to let people borrow the game. They want to, on an economic level, be able to sell the game. I agree that from the preservation standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Not that it doesn't make sense. If your only reason is for preservation, then yes, that's gone. But there are still numerous other reasons why people would want to buy it physically.
That's fair, I guess. The
big thing is the economic aspect.
I know.
That is how the flow of people's games go, is that they, in order to get the next game, they got to trade it in or they want to sell it on Facebook or whatever. That's just
how many people are doing that, you think?
I think it's the reason.
Lots.
It's the reason that you and I buy physical games, Colin. Like which is like, if we bought physical games, it would likely just be to own a copy of the game and to like theoretically preserve that. Other people are thinking like, oh, I want to lend this out or I want to sell it at some point. Like if I buy a game, I'm not selling it. Like I'm never selling a game if I'm buying it. Like it's just like generally, because I remember doing that when I was a kid. It was a stupid idea. The stupidest mistakes that I've ever made, trading in games for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
And so like as a rule, like if I buy a game, I'm never going to sell it again. And if you already accept the fact that if you buy a game and you're not going to sell it, why own it physically?
Yeah,
that's kind of like how I feel about it. Where it's
true.
like, there's no reason for me to own like a million cases. Like I love cases. Like don't get me wrong. Like it was always nice to have them, but I've also moved them before. And once you move with boxes and boxes of things that of just nothing, basically, you start to be like, I don't think I need to add more to this.
Yeah, fair enough.
But this is. I was going to mention the fact that, like, you know, this is 150 gigabyte. This isn't the first time Respawn's done that. This is a Respawn staple, actually. Like if you go back to, I think the original Titanfall was like some absurd file size because they didn't compress. Like it was all uncompressed. Like it was all just
that.
You remember that?
Something about the audio was uncompressed.
Yeah, the audio files were uncompressed. Which if you don't know, yeah,
35 gigs of uncompressed audio. This was in 2014 that people were freaking out about 35 gigs. Oh, that was on PC. 48 gigabyte file size.
Yeah,
So,
that was considered really like unnecessarily large back then. I know it's funny to think about now with 150 gigabyte Jedi Fallen Order, but Respawn just does this sometimes. Like every now and again, they'll come up with a game, and it's just, I would imagine Jedi Fallen Order can't be that big, right? And if it is, Jesus Christ, that's kind of amazing. If it manages to be 150 gigabytes worth of game, I don't foresee that being true. I foresee it being very good, but I don't foresee it being that big. So the only thing that this could possibly be to me is more uncompressed files. I would imagine that it's a lot of uncompressed audio, maybe uncompressed 4K textures, maybe even higher than that. That's what I imagine's going on here. Because there's no way Jedi Fallen Order is 150 gigabytes worth of pure game.
Right. I think that's a big question about it, Chris. What you're saying is just, why is it so big? Whoa. It just doesn't make sense. Like, clearly, maybe it's an audio related thing, but yeah, you're right. There's no way this game is bigger than Elden Ring or Horizon or any other big game in my opinion.
No way.
There's some kind of, and here's the thing too that I think is worth bringing up is that there was another game recently where the PS5 file size was, I think, way bigger than the PS4 file size that confused a lot of people. So, when you're talking about 150 gigs on your it's not even 1 terabyte. What is it? 700 some? You're asking for a lot of real estate on someone's PlayStation 5 or even a Series X for that matter, if it's a full 1 terabyte. It's a lot to ask for. Something doesn't feel right.
Can I say something? I don't know if this is true for a lot of people. File size is for me is a big determining factor on whether or not I'm going to download a game. Like unironically, like sincerely. Like if I see 100, I'm probably I'm probably not going to play this. Not even because I'm not interested, but because holy shit, that is an insane amount of real estate. Like a game like Destiny can justify that real estate for me because I play it so frequently. And even that's, by the way, just Destiny's like 111 or something. 111 gigabytes, which is, enormous.
Yeah.
No way Jedi Fallen Order is as big as Destiny 2 currently is. Insane.
Yeah, it just comes back to me I hear what you guys are saying about physical copies, especially like the economy of things, but that's got to be a shrinking reality every day, like more and more. I mean, the physical games market on a platform like Xbox is already basically dead. I mean, there are companies that are not even releasing physical Xbox games anymore. There's no physical Xbox collection. You know, like when games are released, they're on Switch, PS4, things like that. So that whole thing is dead. And I think that is kind of what is going to creep in more and more into our space as it becomes less and less economical. And it's also, I don't care, people shouldn't care if it's good for developers or publishers, but obviously developers or publishers want to sell you digital games. So, so they're certainly going to try to facilitate that as well. But it seems like that's going to be delayed for quite some time to come with a move like the patent that we discussed earlier. And yet the numbers show pretty persistently that digital is becoming so dominant that I don't know, from my perspective, I understand the sale and all of this, but I'd feel pretty shitty if I was buying a physical game and then I just had to plug it into the internet to get all of it. Like I can't even play it in 1.0 format. I can't even play it broken. Just can't. And I think that's people are so obsessed with physical games in some way. Like this group of people are so obsessed with physical games that that they're ignoring that they're kind of being manipulated. You know, oh yeah, we have a physical copy of the game. Sure, here you go.
But you're still focused on that one aspect of it, though. Where
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that it's still a manipulative thing, nonetheless. You know, regardless of the intent. Otherwise, it's still manipulative to put something. You're going into a store. It's like when people remember when Vita games started coming. Like I think maybe Borderlands 2 or something. It came in a case, and then you just got a code. It's like what
that does suck.
This?
I hate that.
You know, that it's literally the same thing. I mean, the only thing that's not, I guess, not literally the same thing because you could still access the game by having someone else download the package. So it's not quite apples to apples, but it's getting there. And I just think that people, if you can, this should have been exposed earlier so that people would have had time to complain before manufacturer to say like we would prefer that you give us 2 discs. You know, and of course, you know, it'd be like we don't give a shit. But at least it would have started a conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I was just, it's totally different than a code in a box, just in the fact that how you own the license to the game is totally different, and how you cannot sell it when it's on your PSN account. You cannot let a friend borrow it. You can't do any of that stuff. And that's really important to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree that it's different. I think that you're driving down the same exact road, though, and you just haven't turned off yet. You know, like I just think soon enough. If the bloat, how much? It's 80 gigs, right? Or how many gigs is a Blu-ray hold? 100?
It can be up to 100 because I just looked it up for the 4K Blu-ray.
4K Blu-ray, 100 gigs. So you would assume that this is going to become a problem for many companies if they don't want to create. I assume it's not trivial probably, but I assume it's affordable to create another disc per game. The cost of manufacture is not in the printing of the discs. It's in shipping them and getting them to stores and then splitting that money with the stores. Manufacturing is like the most trivial thing of that entire process. So I wonder if maybe they'll just nip that in the bud, or if some like champion publisher is going to identify this as a selling point and be like, you know, we put fucking Destiny 3 on 2 Blu-rays or whatever. By the way, what do you guys think about the Destiny 3 chatter recently? There's like, I think Kotaku kind of helped circulate this thing about this idea of them moving on to Destiny 3. Have you read anything about this? And like how people are getting frustrated?
I don't know. I've taken a bit of a hiatus from Destiny just because I'm trying to catch up on other things that I've been kind of putting away. But there is a feeling that maybe because Destiny 2 is a PS4 game still, you know, and there's a feeling of like there are certain aspects, specifically of the fact that like the new destination is largely unpopulated. You know, it's a lot of enemies, but there's not a lot of, you know, civilian AI, and like maybe there's like a limitation on the fact that it's a PS4 game still, and what aspects of the game are being held back by that old hardware that could be remedied by like a future. You know, a Destiny 3. I think it would be cool, but I also feel like the whole point of this is that it's a persistent game, and I actually kind of feel like they made a mistake even doing Destiny 2 in the first place in some way. So opinions are mixed. I think people would be excited either way, though. Like if they did show Destiny 3, I think people would be stoked about it as long as they handle that transition process correctly. You know.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've just been seeing that circulate.
Yeah.
And I assume Activision had a lot to do with
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Destiny 2. Yeah. All right. I wanted to ask you guys about this. Eurogamer reports, we don't cite them very often, but Metacritic improving moderation after abusive, disrespectful Horizon Forbidden West Shores reviews, and the abusive and disrespectful is in quotes, by the way. And Fandom, which is the site that owns Metacritic, is responding to the review bombing of Forbidden West and the DLC Burning Shores that just came out for PlayStation 5. And according to Eurogamer Story, it says, quote, Horizon Forbidden West DLC Burning Shores released last week, with many praising its visuals and smooth gameplay performance. However, one plot point has led to the game being review bombed on a Metacritic, where the DLC currently sits with a 3.2 user rating. Previously, Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores saw its user rating drop as low as 2.7. So apparently they're going to kind of take this more seriously, I guess, moving forward. Some people are very conspiratorial, although I understand why, because it is strange that they're taking action here when review bombing has been a fact of life on their stupid fucking website for years and years, injuring the name of games widely. I think a lot of it had to do with the specific reason why people don't like, or some people don't like this DLC. I won't say, or we can maybe say, and is it a spoiler? I don't know. I don't want to spoil the game for anyone.
Yeah, I would say
but
no.
It pushes a woke agenda, let's say. That's what it says here in one of the quotes from Metacritic, like from one of the user reviews, is that stop pushing those woke agendas upon gamers. So it's something to do with that, I'll say. I think this is great because I think that they should do something about this. It's so stupid that people can express themselves in this way and actually have a say in some sort of generally accepted or useful metric to someone, like a user score, right? Like when you go to Amazon and you rate something, that matters. People look at it, and there's those memes of like seeing something with 5 stars but 19 reviews, and then you see something with 4.5 stars but it has 40,000 reviews, and you'd rather buy the thing with 40,000 reviews because know that it's pretty reliably checked that people are buying these things and using them and whatever, and there's a more vibrant, like they see it as a valuable additive part of their service. Yeah. And Metacritic just has never tried to control the user score at all, and is instead allowed it to be used as a weapon, and it's so stupid. So I understand why people are being so conspiratorial, be about, well, Sony, it's a Sony game, so this, and I'm like, yeah, it seems a little weird, but it's not even the first Sony game that was targeted in this way. I mean, consider fucking, The
Last of Us
Part
right?
2,
yeah.
right? I mean, that was an even bigger example of this, but I'll get more into what I think. I'll get more into the problem, and I'll put a spoiler tag on it so people can know to skip it if they want. But what do you guys think about this, Dustin? Let's start with you.
Yeah, it is strange that it's happening now. And I don't know, because I think that there are some people that are bigoted and say bad stuff on these, but I think that sometimes that people don't feel like they have any other way to voice their opinion about things. And so this is a way for them to do that. And so I guess there could be a flood of positive reviews of people that support this as well, but they're not around. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what the point I'm trying to make is, but I think it's worth considering that aspect as well. But I don't know. For example, OpenCritic doesn't have user reviews at all, and it's fine. To me, I don't really find value in a user review because they're so often used and weaponized for specific reasons.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I personally don't care about them. I don't even really care about critic reviews to some extent as well, just because if I'm interested in something, I'm going to check it out. Like Rotten Tomatoes to me is totally not useful. And I always get annoyed when people lean on a Rotten Tomato review if they're going to like a movie or not, just because I have found that it is more often the opposite of what I think about a movie than what's reality. And you see it all the time with user reviews there too, that they're also weaponized. So I don't know. I think that maybe the quote unquote user reviews are better left towards individual sites. Like if you've got a review, an opinion about a game, post it on Twitter or on a Facebook group. It doesn't need to be part of any kind of official scoring.
I mean, I have such a clever way, I think, to solve this, although it would take work, God forbid. and maybe a license or some sort of acquisition on the part of a site like Fandom or a corp company like Fandom. But the way you deal with this is to just verify that people played the game. If you want to leave the game a 1.0 because you think it's woke, I guess that's less offensive if you fucking beat it. But people going on to these sites, having sight unseen, not having any idea what the game's about, hearing things, or just doing things to defame and hurt a game as opposed to share an earnest and honest opinion is interesting, because no game is a 1.0. I mean, a game that is a 1 is a game that's unplayable, or a 2, or it's like, so that's not even valuable. That's not even saying anything to anyone. And I find it totally insane that these sites don't do the work to try to at least have some sort of verification. And so the way I think that you could do it is to imagine a site like PSN Profiles, which is in another network, but imagine they had a site like PSN Profiles where you could upload, attach your name to it like you do with your PSN ID, and then it reads your trophies. And then through that data, once your trophy pops, that they can make little marks and little connections in the back end. So it's like, this trophy means you beat this game. This trophy means you beat this game. It would require manual input. I mean, data input on all these sites is already manual. It would just be another checkbox to do. And then you can encourage people to use that, prove that you've beaten it, and then give those scores real value. And in fact, if you did something like that, you could make the argument that those scores would become more valuable than the Metacritic score.
Yeah.
Because you actually did the work to go through things. That's why people go to Steam, right? Because you can see everything about their experience, including how much they played it. Of course, you can see their Steam achievements and all that, but you can literally see how much time they engaged with it. And that's why those things are taken seriously. At Amazon, as far as I know, you have to buy something to review it. That doesn't mean you can't bomb it, I guess, or whatever. I just think that it's... And by the way, if you are review bombing, like I think people do review bomb books and shit like that, and maybe you're allowed or got to get around it that way, or use Kindle or something like that. That stuff is removed quickly. So I just think it's strange. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think it's just remarkably lame to just spend time review bombing in the first place. Like to even be in the mindset of run it, because I don't buy the idea. It's like there's no other way for people to express themselves. Like I don't buy that this is like the only legitimate, like, because that used to be an argument where it's like, oh, well, this is the only voice that the consumer has. That's not true at all. Like not anymore. Like maybe that used to be true in like, I don't know, maybe like 2011 or something. But like there's like a million ways for the average consumer to voice themselves, especially now. Like we have so many social media platforms. We have so many different ways to get your voice out there and be heard. And there's forums, there's Twitter, I mean, Jesus Christ, if you're a content person, there's like an infinite number of ways. Like I just don't. That argument is mattered less and less to me as the years have gone on, and also, I just think it's just unhelpful generally, because there's no, like, Horizon. I have my own feelings about Horizon, but it's not a 3, dude. And I have a really difficult time believing that any DLC offering that they would offer up would be a 3 as well. Like, so it's just generally unhelpful. It's always to do with something that doesn't really have that much bearing on it. Like I remember when Dead Space was getting bombed because of the gender neutral bathrooms, which is like insane, because it's like such a ridiculous reason to criticize Dead Space. I don't know. It's a very tiring process.
You have unisex bathrooms in 2500?
Yeah, can you imagine?
Sorry.
Your bathroom is a unisex, but I can't. It's just tiring. It's really tiring. And the reasons for the review bombings are getting even worse, because like to me they used to be like, oh, this game is genuinely. It used to be in like 2015 there were review bombs, right? Like that still happened, but they were at least due to like, I don't know, business practices that were generally unsavory. Like
online
Arkham
passes,
Knight
day
on
one
PC.
DLC.
Right. Or like genuine performance issues about the game. But now it's you have to be so in the weeds of like very specific like back channels of the internet to even know what the fuck is wrong with it in the first place. And that to me, it's we've jumped the shark at this point where it's like, no, I don't take any of that seriously anymore. I don't know if I ever really did, to be honest, but I certainly don't now. And I do think a verification process I don't think you necessarily have to have beaten the game to give a perspective on it. I think it's think it's totally fair that as long as you've bought it and put like, maybe a percentage worth of hours in, I think that's fair enough. But that you could just go to a game that you heard about from someone who heard about it, and then leave your opinion on the game as if it's equally as valid as people who played it. That's insane. It's fucking anarchy.
Yeah, I agree. It is anarchy. I mean, it is. And that's why I think it is weird that they care now. But hopefully, I would love for companies like Metacritic to just eventually go out of business. I mean, that's not going to happen. By the way, I will say this, Chris, and I know you guys can appreciate this because it's true on YouTube, which is, I remember at IGN, I used to ask Pear all the time, the founder of IGN, the publisher, why don't we get rid of comments? They fucking suck. They suck. Why don't we get rid of them? They don't serve any purpose. It's because it keeps people clicking back into the stories. It drives traffic. And it's the same thing with Metascores and the user scores. It is that simple. Yeah. And that makes it even worse because when you know something is destructive towards the end product or corruptive towards things around it, the industry around it, but you do it anyway, that's a choice. And so at least they're finally making a different choice and maybe rectifying this. But I think they have to have some sort of confirmation that you played the game and then sound off. But I want to say this, guys, before we move on. And this is when I'm going to spoil the Horizon DLC, but I'm putting that in quotes because it's not really a spoiler. It's certainly not what the game's about. But I will acknowledge that people might want to
skip to the next timestamp now if you don't want to hear it, since this is the last part of this bit.
Napoleon and Rags wrote in and said, with another round of review bombing happening, this time the victim being the Burning Shores expansion, fandom and Metacritic are looking into ways to curb these hurtful user scores. Maybe it's time to eliminate scores altogether for users. Any thoughts on what can be done about review bombing? Should anything be done? The only thing that needs to be done is for people to stop being crazy about representation in video games to the point of comedy. That's like literally all you have to do. The fact that Aloy might be gay, I mean, maybe she's bisexual. I don't think they make it totally clear. I think it's, I don't even want to say more about another game. I was going to say something else, but she kisses another girl in the game. I haven't even gotten to that point in the game, but it was spoiled for me in quotes too. I guess it's a spoiler in that sense. But what does it matter? And people say, I saw this thing, and this is why I wanted to talk about this really quick. I saw a comment just in passing somewhere, maybe on Twitter, of someone saying like, well, they'll never, where are all the gay guys kissing? Like, why wouldn't they have guys kissing? And they don't want to get that woke. And it's like, well, you're answering your own question, asshole. I mean, like, I don't know how you don't understand that.
Yeah.
I understand. Listen, dude, I totally get the idea of like fucking pride flags being shoved down your throats and every day is a day of visibility for some random sexuality and all that. And people are tired of it. I get it. But if the bare essence of a person is in fact their sexuality, and gay people exist. So of course they're going to exist in the fiction you like. And instead of focusing on every time you see a gay person and being othering that and being like, it's a gay person. Look at, why is there a gay person? It's so woke. Maybe just look at that instead as the tapestry of humanity. That there's going to be straight couples and there's going to be gay couples.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that simple. I don't get the consternation about this topic. And the reason that Nathan Drake isn't making out with a dude or something like that isn't because maybe they didn't have the idea to make one of these Sony characters gay, but it's because of the very thing you're talking about. I don't think it should be a defining feature. A person's sexuality should be like the defining feature of a person, but it matters and it's relevant. And love and relationships and caring about people, that's all part of good storytelling. So of course you're going to see and be exposed to that sort of thing. And people are acting like it's like the same, it's like the same furor as all of these other social issues that are frankly much more offensive. So that's what I wanted to say about that. I just think it's silly and stupid to expect that everything that goes against an orthodox nuclear family or something like that is woke. It's just reality. I mean, it's literally just reality.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's it. All right, my friends. Let's move on. Blue Moose wrote in for the next topic. He said, hello, super sexy studs. With the Twisted Metal TV show coming out sometime this year, do you think Sony will release a Twisted Metal game to coincide with the show? With no official announcement of a game coming at all, and the show not having a release date yet, What are your predictions for the announcement? Love all the amazing content and stay sexy, my friends. This has become a very relevant topic, my friends, because over at IGN, I guess it was one of their exclusives. They got the original, or I guess the first imagery from the show that's coming to Peacock. And let's see, the trailer will debut. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to miss the trailer. That will go live the day that this show goes live, so we'll have to wait to see that. But at the very least, we can react to the poster and then discuss if this is a harbinger of things to come for Twisted Metal. So first of all, Chris, let's stick with you. Does this poster speak to you in any way, shape, or form? To describe it to the radio audience or the audio audience, it's just who is that? Mackie? What's his name?
Yeah, it's Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie, yeah, just driving a car with a gun on it. Some chaos in the background. You see the ice cream truck in the background, the logo. It's nothing too crazy, but it's the first shot, maybe a sign of what it will look like aesthetically. You have any thoughts?
I was talking to Dustin about it a little bit before you showed up to the session, and it doesn't look offensive. It doesn't look bad, but it also looks really kind of seeing Anthony Mackie just sort of side-eyeing the camera, being like, it almost feels like there should be I bet you're wondering how I got myself into this situation type of narration, where he's driving this absurd this sedan with a gun that looks so unpractical. I think it's gonna be funny. Like, whatever this trailer is, it seems, I don't know if it'll be funny on purpose. I really need to stress this, because when I see this poster, I think hilarious. This looks funny to me, but I don't think they think it looks funny necessarily.
It is. It is described as a high octane action comedy,
right? So. But like, I mean, it's hard to describe. There's a vibe here that I would find it very difficult to think that they got perfectly on purpose. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll wait for the trailer. We'll see. Obviously, that'll be live, in the future, or in the past when you're listening to this. But it's fine. I don't know. My hopes for this are very, very low. So in that sense, I feel like it has the biggest potential to impress me, because like, what are your expectations for a Twisted Metal show? Sweet Tooth has a daughter that he's raising, and he learns to become a father. Like, I don't think
Little
so.
Tooth.
Isn't that the name of a dinosaur on Land Before Time? Oh, it's Littlefoot.
No, that's Littlefoot.
Okay.
Yeah, and his cousin, his evil twin cousin, Evilfoot.
Dustin, do you have any thoughts on if this is going to correlate with some sort of game, which is apparently was rumored to be in development at Lucid, second party relationship, the guys that made what the fuck was that game? The Destruction All-Stars. Yeah.
And
then it was moved over to Firesprite, which is now an internal team. That's the rumor anyway. It still is unannounced, but do you think that that's possible, and does this speak to you at all?
Yeah. Well, I got to say about the poster, first of all, respect for using the traditional logo, which I think looks great on this. And I love that they're just right out the gate saying, hey, this is balls to the wall. We've got rockets going off. We've got machine guns. There's flames at the bottom for some reason. And I like that, just because I remember and know the bad video game adaptations where Twisted Metal could have been something where you have a post-apocalypse and it's serious, and Sweet Tooth is this crazed man in an ice cream truck, and it's a much more grounded or something like that. This is a reality that we could have seen, but this feels much more in line in the totally crazy balls to the wall universe of the games. And again, it's worth saying again. See, based on original take by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, which is Deadpool and Zombieland, which both Deadpool and Zombieland are pretty damn good. So hopefully this is good too. As far as a game, I don't know. It seems like things are kind of lining up quite nicely. You've got your trailer, and then if there is a showcase coming in the next 30 or so days, you got time to announce that as well. And we've already heard rumors about it. I don't know. Things seem to be lining up synergistically, Colin.
Indeed.
Your favorite.
The synergy is real, my friends. Not only with that, with The Last of Us as well, Gran Turismo. And I wanted to touch on Gran Turismo quick too, because Push Square, our friends over there, reported that the rumors about Gran Turismo and the impressions of a trailer that were shown behind closed doors at CinemaCon recently were very positive. And they collected a few tweets that people were talking about it from CinemaCon. And someone said Gran Turismo actually looks really good with a question mark. And someone with a little more detail said, I dug the Gran Turismo trailer like a cross between a racing movie and Real Steel or something. It's wish fulfillment that's very much aimed at gamers, and it looks fun. With David Harbour, who of course is the main character, training gamers for real racing. Visually, it looks expensive. And another person said first trailer for Gran Turismo movie looks really good. It's based on a true story about a video game player who became a race car driver. So that did happen. That was based on Gran Turismo 5, I want to say. So I'll be interested to see how PS3. So I want to see how that all works out. But this seems like it's coming in hot too. What's our expectations here? Dustin, let's stick with you.
Yeah, I'm curious about this just from playing Gran Turismo 7 and the fact, again, it sounds so ridiculous. And when we first heard this idea of a Gran Turismo movie, it just sounded so silly. But the angle that they're taking on it, the fact that it's based on this true story, and now that the impressions of the trailer are good, I don't know, sounds intriguing. I think that at least some of us were going to go see it no matter what, so we could cover it in one way or another. And I was worried that I was going to have to do so begrudgingly. But I don't know. Now with my newfound interest in the game, and now that the movie sounds like it might be pretty cool, I'm open to the idea. But obviously a lot of that's going to hang on the actual public reactions to first trailers, because sometimes the people that preview this are not the same type of people as the general public. Kind of like with the Mario movie, how that totally didn't do well with critics at all, but everyone who likes Mario and has seen it loved it. So could be a situation like that as well.
Yeah, they make a point, Push Square does at the end, that because CinemaCon is an industry event, they say, quote, remember, these are legit film critics too. Their judgment probably remains unclouded by serious fandom, as always those working in the motion picture industry were invited to attend. So yeah, it could both work for and against them in that way, no doubt. Chris, any expectations for this GT movie?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm expecting it to be a decent. I think the idea, right, of well, because when we first heard the idea of a Gran Turismo movie, I think we all kind of chuckled a little bit at the idea, because it's a little bit like the Tetris. What's the Tetris movie going to be? You know, like you're going to follow the blocks. But the Tetris movie is another example of something that ended up just being about the game, and it ended up being apparently very, very good. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'd like to watch it. I'd like to watch it myself.
That's on Apple TV, right?
Yeah, that's where it is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that, and I have no intention. I'll wait.
I don't have it either. I'd have to get it.
I'll figure it out. I'll watch it at some point whenever it's available to me. But the idea that Gran Turismo is taking a similar approach makes it a lot more appealing to me as somebody who's not really, I'm not a car person. Really, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I can tell a Honda from a Toyota, basically. But that's it. That's all you're getting out of me. Maybe a Dodge Ram. Those are obvious cars.
Yeah,
but
Dodge
I know next to nothing about this space. So the idea of it being kind of about the game and about more than just, it's not Fast and Furious where it's just cars the whole time. It has my interest somewhat. I wouldn't say I'm ecstatic about it, but I'm gonna check it out when it's out, and I'm sure it's probably gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Gran Turismo movie much more than I'm looking forward to the Peacock show for Twisted Metal.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
That's for damn sure. I'm also interested to see if and when they're going to show, and I don't say it's when they're going to show Uncharted 2, the movie. Like, what's the plan here with that? Are they going to get that going, or are they getting that going? I don't fucking have any idea, but we'll look forward to those things, and we'll have more to say about those on the shows, of course. Okay. Over on The Guardian, I just wanted to point this out. We don't have to marinate on this too long, but I thought people might be interested in reading it, so they should go check it out. If you just Google the face of PlayStation, Shuhei Yoshida, on the joy and future of video games, it's written by my old friend at IGN, Keza McDonald, actually, and it's over at The Guardian. She's The Guardian's games writer, has been for a while, I think. But it's an interesting interview with him about some parts of his career and what's going on. And there's some interesting topics that have been pulled out of here. And I already lamented this and kind of went on a pontification about this on Sacred Symbols Cross-Defining Duke, which will go live the day after this show goes live for our patrons already. But it was disappointing. There's interesting information about specific game budgets in this, including the budget of God of War 3 on PS3 and then the budget of God of War Ragnarok. And I was just surprised by how many people were surprised that games like God of War Ragnarok cost $200 million. Like, what did you think? This became a huge news item that was circulating, and I was confused by that. Like, what do you think these games cost? This is what I've been trying to tell you for so long. They're so expensive to make. That's why I think that it's important that we balance the economy in our industry as best as possible. But I wanted to recommend that. People might want to go check that out. I also wanted to point out that Embracer announced that Dead Island 2 has sold 1 million copies. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It's nothing too crazy, but it's something for a game that was developed at different times by 3 different studios and was first supposed to come out in 2015, as you might recall. So it was delayed 8 years and it still came out and it said pretty good. And I got to be honest, Dustin, and I'm curious. I'm interested in this game. It's supposed to be somewhat linear, which is interesting, and really gratuitous, which is also interesting. I think I'm actually going to buy it and maybe play it in the coming weeks. What do you think?
I think that if I wanted to play an open world zombie game like this, I probably would go back to Dying Light 2 based on the fact that they've made a lot of changes recently.
I heard it's like totally rehauled.
Yeah.
Dying Light 2.
Oh,
that's
they
intriguing
rehauled the
to me.
combat and stuff and like the movement. Yeah.
in Dying Light 2?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
In
shit.
response, and they announced it, I think, the day before Dying Light, or not Dying Light, Dead Island 2 came out, was very competitive. It was very fun to see. So shout out to those guys. But yeah, I don't know, for Dying Light or for
Dead Rising.
Dead Rising, Dead Island. I just don't. I've never been that intrigued by this series. I wasn't into the first one, and so I'm not too intrigued by this one. I'm glad that people are enjoying it, but I heard that the thing that does intrigue me, I will say, is the level of goriness. I'm hearing about jaws hanging on by a thread when zombies get kicked in the face and stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds, I'm okay with that. So
Yeah, I'm interested in this game. Like, I don't want to hate just to hate. It's no doubt that Dan Buster made a turd with Homefront: The Revolution, but times change and this seems to be better. And I read something interesting, actually. There was an interview, I don't know where it was. It might have been on VGC, but I'm not sure, where they were talking about with someone who's working on the game, and they made it clear that the version of the game that came out is in no way the version that was being made by Jaeger and by Sumo. Like, they started from scratch, which was never made clear as far as I know. What it seemed like was that the game was being passed like a baton between these studios. And I had no doubt that they were like stripping it down and starting things again or whatever, but I didn't know that when Dan Buster took the project over following the Revolution, Homefront: The Revolution's, I guess, DLC support and all of that they just started from the beginning. So what you're seeing is a totally fresh game made from the ground up, which I think they could have done a better job of communicating, because I think that would have been a much wiser thing than to make it seem like it was, to use a term here, a shambling corpse of a game that was just being run through by these different studios and they couldn't do anything with it. So I don't know why they did that. I don't know why that choice came up, but I think this is a pretty substantial sale for Embracer, because they had some fucking turds come out recently with Saints Row and all the rest. Although Saints Row's support will continue as well.
Yeah.
All right. This happened right after we recorded last week, so I did want to acknowledge that there is a bunch of new Division news, and specifically about the Division Heartland and then the Division 2 Year 5. So there's big write-ups on Ubisoft's website for that, but the big thing that people have been walking away from all of this is confirmation that there seems to be no inclination that the Division 2 is ever going to be ported to PlayStation 5. And I find that disappointing, although I think that if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. So it's not, I guess, that surprising. Do you have any thoughts on this, Dustin?
I was watching the developer gameplay video. I didn't end up seeing all of it, but it looked pretty extensive for a free-to-play game, which the more extensive and good a free-to-play game is, the more I get red flags about how they're going to monetize it, because it really does. I feel like if I didn't know anything about this project and the plans, that if someone showed me this gameplay and told me it was Division 3, I would believe them. So I'm very curious about the monetization. I don't know. I'm looking at the article now from Ubisoft to see if they detailed that at all, but that would be my number one concern if I was a Division fan.
Yeah, I must note, as far as the Division 2 coming to PS5, that there is a patch that does make it run at 60 frames and 4K, I believe. So there is that, but I don't know. It is strange. It makes me wonder what the future of this is. Like the Division has been getting such strong support. It's in its 5th year that there must be some sort of telemetry indicating that there's a fan base here. I think the Division is probably the most fun I've ever had with a shooter, like a service shooter in my life. So it's definitely something for me. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Are you interested in this at all, Chris? Specifically Heartland?
I'm at an impasse with the Division because I agree with you that I liked the Division 2 a lot. I thought it was really, really cool. And Heartland looks interesting. However, I only had it's another one of these live service games that kind of end up being a second job in some way. And I really only have time as a functioning adult for one of these at a time. And right now, and for the foreseeable future, that is in all likelihood going to be Destiny, as my friends and I are all on it. And it's frustrating too, because I agree. Like, dude, the Division 2 was awesome. Like, it was really, really good as a co-op game, as a single player game. It was dope.
Yeah, fun. It's just fun. The gameplay is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and it's got that Tom Clancy feel that I really, really like. But I just don't know if I have time for a game like this. It's actually what makes Dead Island 2 so appealing to me, because I heard it was like super linear and it didn't overstay its welcome a lot. And to me, it's like, that's awesome. That's amazing news. There's no better way to sell me on a game than it's not long. I think that's why I loved Stray actually so much. Now I think about it too. And a lot of other games like that, where it's like, oh my God, it's so nice to know that I can finish this, you know? So I don't know. I'll probably check it out and dip my toes into the water to see how it feels, see how it runs. But I don't know. I'll wait until I play it to make a decision on whether or not I'll keep going with it. But the answer is probably likely not.
Yeah, I think Heartland will be something that I do try to get into. It's PvEVP, so it sounds like you can play it by yourself, which is good. Okay. Just 2 more pieces of news I want to get through real quick before we get into what we're playing, and then we'll get into the bigger pieces of news that I want to discuss this week. But Koei Tecmo, according to this an analyst Twitter account here on Twitter, noted that Wo Long and Wild Hearts, so Wo Long Team Ninja game published by Koei Tecmo, Wild Hearts Omega Force published by EA. Both of those games had quote unquote successful launches according to Koei Tecmo's internals. It wouldn't be, and there were no comments on actual sales. It wouldn't be for them to announce Wild Hearts sales. That would be for EA, and maybe that will come out there. But Wo Long sales are unknown, but apparently pretty well. And finally, I wanted to just note Armored Core 6 right before we started recording. Got a release date of August 25th on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Armored Core 6 and Fires of Rubicon. And DDT Joestar wrote into us about this on Patreon. Says, good day, Colin, Dustin, and Chris. Glad you're all healthy and doing well. And just wanted to ask you guys for any additional opinions on Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. We've been blessed with a launch day trailer announcement showcasing a new entry with what seems to be the accessibility of Armored Cores 4 and 5 with the return of the difficulties of Last Raven and Ninebreaker in former titles, all while adding Sekiro weapon mechanics and gorgeous open areas and demanding boss battles. With the game dropping on August 25th, do any of you think you'll be giving it a shot? I respect Colin likes to keep things fresh and tends to avoid footage of what he's interested in, but please do let us know your feelings. Much appreciated for all that you do. Keep the health in mind when you do it. Thank you, DDT Joestar, for writing in. Dustin, I got to go to you first on this. What are your thoughts? Armored Core 6 from your beloved FromSoft, August 25th. I personally am not going to play it. I just know I'm not going to do it. It's just not going to hit me, I don't think. But is it something for you?
Oh, yeah. I loved what I saw in this trailer. Not that it was fully... I sometimes find it a bit annoying when companies release trailers that say gameplay trailer, and it does show you what the game looks like when it's running, but it's not indicative of what the moment-to-moment gameplay.
Yeah, there's no HUD.
Like.
It's not like actual... Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but that aside, what we saw in this trailer, I thought looked absolutely fantastic. And the thing for me is that From Software, and I think in a wise decision, have gone out to make sure that people know that this isn't Dark Souls Armored Core or Dark Souls with robots. They've made that very clear, and I respect that. But
that would be so cool, though.
Oh man, that would be great.
That would be cool. That would be.
But to me, what the some of the small bits of this trailer show, particularly boss fights, where there's a lot of quickly dodging left and right and kind of, circle strafing around a boss. And then they also mentioned Sekiro-like mechanics. That is really intriguing to me, in that I'm not expecting a Souls game, but for me, I want the feeling that I've gotten from playing From Software games of obviously very difficult, highly customizable in your character and strategy, but also this idea that every death and every victory feels earned, where you need to do what the game requires of you. There's very little wiggle room. And at the end, after the struggle, you succeed and you feel amazing. And I'm hoping that's what we get from this game. And I don't know. I think it's funny to see some Armored Core fans kind of, I don't want to necessarily call them gatekeepers, but even just some of the replies to my tweet where people were saying, man, From Software fans are going to be upset when they get this game and it's not a Souls game. It's like, do you think, sure, there are some Souls players that only play Souls that are not going to like this, but I think it's more true to say that Souls players just really like challenging games that maybe on surface level are really tough, but if you take the dedication to learn them, that they can become trivial because they just require a certain type of skill set from you. And so I would imagine that From Software spirit is going to be applied to this game and still be very appealing for Souls players. So I gotta admit, we talk about not pre-ordering. I did pre-order not the most expensive special edition, but the middle one, because I really want that robot figure that it comes with. Looks really cool. Obviously, if the game sucks, I can cancel it and buy a lower tier.
It's not going to suck. I mean, of course.
Yeah, it's not going to suck though. So, in this instance, I want the goodies, and it won't always be there for me necessarily. So I went and pre-ordered it.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, are you down with the what game were we even talking about? I can't remember. Armored Core 6? I wanted to call it Mecha Warrior.
Yeah. No, totally. I'm totally down. Whatever this is, I'm down for it. I like it's. I don't know, robots are a very specific thing for me where I really am attracted to very specific aesthetics of robot, or like specific aesthetics of like mech combat. And this to me is kind of that exact thing. The idea of like, there are mechs with like tank treads, and they're like barreling through the street and there's like jet streams flying out of their back at like sharp angles. I love that stuff that's like kind of like almost Gundam style. Except obviously a lot more like rustic and a lot more like muted and dire. I love it. The style, the visual style of it. I like it. I like that it's easy to read. I like that it's as detailed as it needs to be without going kind of like balls to the wall, unnecessary, like over detail. It's kind of like my problem with even just like multiplayer in Call of Duty nowadays, where it's like people blend in with the background because everything's equivalently hyper detailed. I dig it. Like whatever it is, I think it's going to be a very, very different experience from Dark Souls, but I'm totally down with that. Like I don't mind. In fact, I think it makes me more interested. So
one last comment.
Yeah,
I just want to, before we move on, shout out to this coming out in August. It was so exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
Obviously, we found out about it. What was that, at the Game Awards? But I like seeing a nice initial reveal. Give it some time to marinate. And then you come out strong with a gameplay trailer and a release date that's not even that far away. I love that. This is like the ideal amount of time for this type of cycle for me. So very awesome. We've got a delicious meal of Final Fantasy XVI in June, and then back to back with 1 month in between, and then of course this in August. I can't wait.
Glorious day, my friend. I'm glad for you. August is a perfect time to release games. And that late summer window reminds me a lot of 2002. I think Super Mario Sunshine and Onimusha 2 both came out in that window, and that was like a really memorable moment because I was like going into my first year of college. All right, my friends, let's move on. It's time to talk about what we're playing. So let's start here. Let's see, Dustin, let's start with you and hear about your experience with Metal Gear Solid 3, which should be interesting.
So I've started and completed Metal Gear Solid 3 since last week. And I gotta say, it's good. And
Yeah.
in the end, I would say great, particularly in the story. Really enjoyed the end in particular. But I cannot understand people that think that this is the best Metal Gear game. I can't understand it.
Oh, yeah. Not even close.
I appreciate the fact that Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, the big change there is in its graphics, right? A lot of the gameplay, pretty similar. Obviously, a different setting and characters, stuff like that. So I respect Metal Gear Solid 3 really did attempt to do new things from the previous two games. I don't think they really work out. And it's funny seeing how people have reacted to what I've said about this game on Twitter, saying, well, you just had to be there. Well, first of all, I did play some of the game when it came out, and I remembered not liking these same things back then that I still don't like now. For example, there's a system in this game called Cure, where if you get shot by a gun, then you need to, your health bar has this red area that doesn't quite, or it takes way longer to recover. So the idea is you press start, go into the Cure menu, and it will tell you what part of Snake's body got fucked up and how it got fucked up. So there's also like maybe you get stabbed, maybe you get blown up and you break a leg or something like that. So you have to select and go and pick, okay, you got to use the knife to get the bullet out. Then you've got to use the thread in order to stitch yourself up. Then you got to use the ointment to clean it up. And you have to do this all the time. You'll be in a boss battle and maybe you'll get fucked up a little bit because you're figuring it out. Hit pause, go in the menu, do all this bullshit that's the same repetitive shit every time this happens. I feel like it was in a boardroom and Kojima's like, what if you had to actually heal yourself realistically? And everyone kind of looked at each other and was like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. I guess it sounds cool in practice. This idea of individually healing parts of your body. But then when you actually do it, it sucks. And I don't like it. There's a whole camo system as well that I overall felt was kind of useless. And then there's a system where you need to make sure Snake eats. Obviously, the game's called Snake Eater, which ends up just kind of being a chore throughout the game where you just got to make sure that he eats every 10 minutes or else his stomach starts growling. So these new elements just didn't really do it for me. But as I said, the story of Snake and his mentor, the boss, cool stuff, cool boss fights in particular. A lot of people talk about the end, which is the sniper fight in the game. Pretty cool and a lot of interesting ideas. I mean, it's a hallmark of the Metal Gear series to have amazing boss fights, and this game is no different. So, overall, not bad. Glad I played it. But I have one other thing that I have to ask you, Colin, or see if you can agree with me. So, I decided that I was going to play Metal Gear Solid 4. And I currently don't have my copy on disc right now.
Oh, yeah, I have your copy. Yeah, sorry.
I wasn't going to say it, but Colin has my disc. That's okay. But I remembered that I actually have it digitally. At some point, I got it for free. Dust off the old PS3, and it takes forever to update. I'm like, okay, well, this is the first annoying thing. I update the PS3, it takes forever. Log into the PlayStation Network, and let me tell you, the first time you log in after a while, I think it was closer to 10 minutes where it was just loading. I went upstairs and went to the bathroom and came back and it was still loading. So that was annoying. I find the game. I hit install. You don't have enough free space. I don't have a lot of stuff installed. So I go and I realize that I have about 20 gigs free of my 100 gig hard drive that only has 78 gigs available. So I go and I delete some stuff. So I have, I think it's 23 gigs for the game. I have like 25 at that point, right? Open up the PSN again, find the game, hit install. You don't have enough free space. So I go delete more stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, deleting large things on PlayStation 3 can also take multiple minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So at this point, I've probably put an hour into this process at least. And I keep going and I keep deleting stuff. I look it up and I forgot that PlayStation 3, you need to have sometimes up to double the amount of space in order to install something. So you're talking about 50 gigs on a hard drive that only has 70 gigabytes available for me to try to install this fucking game. Eventually, I get enough space, and it takes so long to download. Insane. For 23 gigs, it is maybe going 1 megabyte a second. Maybe. It finally downloads later in the night. I go to boot it up, and I remember, oh yeah, I got to install this. There goes another hour and a half installing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I finally start to play it, only to remember that the performance of this game is complete dog shit. This game runs so fucking bad. If there's any kind of explosion, anything going on, expect FPS in the 20s, maybe less. I don't know. I'm going to have to see what Digital Foundry put out about this. It's absolutely horrendous. And some people were telling me, oh, you got to get in the mindset. And sometimes I do that with older games. It was so bad. So I'm thinking, everyone was talking about, oh, it's so easy to emulate PlayStation 3 on PC. That's why the PS5 should be able to do it. But you know what? I'm going to dip my toes. I'm going to try to emulate Metal Gear Solid 4 on PC. I'm going to use the emulator. We'll see how easy and how well it works. And I'd love to be wrong. Not that I'm saying it's going to be bad, but that's what I'm going to do. And we'll see if I can get a nice 60 FPS on PC and not want to kill myself in the process of trying to get this thing working. Because it's unfortunate that Metal Gear Solid 4 is one of those games that is just stuck on the PS3 and is in just such a bad spot. So anyway, I just had to share it. I was, at the end of the day, when I was sitting there looking at the install, I was laughing, thinking about my day-long journey to install Metal Gear Solid 4 on an old-ass PS3. We've got it good now, boys, let me tell you, with any kind of updates or installs, because I guess it was an early time for that. It was novel, but damn, did it not come without headaches.
It is truly, even back then, I remember that game running really, like, I didn't really have an eye for frame rate back then, but like even back then I was like, it's the only Metal Gear Solid game that I haven't, I really hated it back then.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get past aspects like that. And I still, to this day, I've never finished Metal Gear Solid 4 because it's just like, I can't.
I never either.
I can't be fucked.
4 or 5 I never beat. 3 is interesting to me because I agree with you. 3 is notable because it's the first game in the timeline, I think. So
yeah, that's correct.
So that's cool. And it's, of course, where this vaunted remake is going to go that we keep hearing about on PlayStation 5. But I replayed and beat Metal Gear Solid 3 last year, I want to say, for Knockback. So Dagan and I played it more recently, and I wasn't crazy about it either. I think the first and clearly the second one are just so much better. And it's funny because it's from the very same era of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, like really like within a year. No, within a year or two of each other. And San Andreas had a very similar problem, I think, where it's like, I don't want to exercise, dude. I don't want to do like this trivial, stupid shit that it's not fun. There was a lot of people experimenting with more of those sim elements that I felt like they thought were interesting. But really, when you're pausing the game during combat to do all this, it doesn't make any sense, actually.
Yeah.
It makes even less sense than just eating a health item.
The issue I find with Metal Gear Solid 3 is that it's awesome, by the way. I think it's great. I think 2 is my favorite, no doubt. I love 2. But 3 has like those immersive sim elements, or like you could call them light immersive sim elements, but the rest of the game isn't an immersive sim, really. So it kind of feels a little out of place. It feels frustrating. Whereas in a game like, I don't know, Prey or Deus Ex or something, or even something like System Shock, these things feel a little bit more at home because they're extrapolated throughout the rest of the design. Like everything is tedious in some way to like almost an immersive degree. But with Metal Gear Solid, it's like eat, heal, disguise. And then everything else is absurd and ridiculous. And it just sort of feels like, well, either one or the other, really. Like you can't have it both ways, I think. That's kind of like the biggest problem with that game. But it's still fantastic.
I got to say one thing before we switch over, just to save myself from the comments, because many people asked about this. I played on the HD collection on Series X that does have the third-person camera control, because apparently, I understand the original version of the game did not have that.
Mhm.
And then when they released Subsistence, that added that. And apparently that's a deal breaker for some people, or completely changed.
It's so much better, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely what's nice on HD collection. If you hit the right stick, it'll switch between the two. So I was mostly using third person, but every once in a while, just clicking, just so I know sometimes where I was oriented, because sometimes it was a little bit confusing. But yeah, it wasn't like I don't like it because I didn't use that camera. I think that some people thought that. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that it definitely helped, but it wasn't the main factor of why I didn't like it.
Yeah, fair enough. Metal Gear Solid 3 to me is, I'm interested to see the remake. I know I said this and I was contentious on Knockback, and I've reiterated here is that I really, 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 really want the new game to just be in Russian, straight up. Just be in Russian. Just embrace the whole foreign and weird nature of it from the very beginning. And I know that they say at some point that they're speaking Russian and it's just English for the game, but it's stupid. Like, it would be so much more thrilling to have that, I think. And I don't know. I'll be interested to see how they. But going back, I think 1964 is when the game begins, if I recall, and so like kind of that nascent Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be cool for them to see if they can reform Metal Gear from the beginning like that. Like, people are saying they're remaking Metal Gear Solid 3, and I think it's almost certain that they're going to call it Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake or something. But you kind of wonder in your head, are they just going to restart the timeline and call it Metal Gear or something, or Metal Gear something, and just take the third game story? It's possible. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Shout out to the meowing also.
Oh yeah.
It's dude, it's so awesome. I laughed out loud when our boy Ocelot, of course.
All right, Chris, what are you playing?
Playing a couple things. Working through. So I went back and revisited Hitman. Because now that I have the time and the patience, I'm not going to the gym every day, busting my soul in half. I find that I have a lot more patience with games now. And I always loved Hitman. Like, Hitman's awesome. It's a wonderful stealth game. But when I was playing the Hitman games, I would always go, I would finish a level and then I would move on to the next one. Then I would finish a level, move on to the next one. And then when the game was over, I would stop. I would say that was it, because I had to move on to the next thing for Sacred. I wanted to have something new to talk about. And so I would always find myself moving on. And so I went back to it just to replay some of these missions in different ways. And as somebody who already loved these games before, my God, the flexibility of the sandbox is so cool, especially because now you can go through each and every one of the previous games, Hitman, Hitman 2, Hitman 3, and play all of them with all of like the new sandbox implementations. It is so cool. There's a freelance mode too that's like a roguelike kind of almost like a permadeath mode where you have to go through like these specific contracts and get specific people. And there's like there are boss encounters. I think there are like 3 or 4 boss encounters per campaign or per run that you have to do, where you don't know who the target is, and you have intel basically describing like, where's glasses, is a foodie, is a smoker. And then you have to like kind of piece together who the suspect is and who your target is with no intel, and then find a way to, assassinate him and get out of there. And there's like all these like different bonuses where, you get more, I think the game is called Mercers or whatever, but it's just currency, like a very specific type of currency where like if you kill him with poison, you get this. If you hide the body and no one finds it, you get like this extra bonus, and that lets you get more items for the next run. It's actually really, really cool and really robust, especially because these levels, these play spaces are so expansive and so detailed that each level feels like there are, like, I'm sure there probably aren't, but like it feels like there are hundreds of permutations of ways to successfully, get everybody without tripping alarms. It's super, super satisfying. I love Hitman. I've been really, really engrossed in it as of late. I've been playing it every night, and it's awesome. Always has been. If you haven't played Hitman 3, especially that second level of Hitman 3, I think it's a transformative level. We've been singing its praises for a while on the show, but still really, really good. And I've also jumped into Final Fantasy VI for the first time in a very, very long time. And First thing I noticed immediately was that the text was horrible, and then I went back and
You fixed it.
Yeah, I fixed it. It's interesting to me because when you guys were talking about it, I was like, oh, it's probably just like a nostalgic thing, where like I'm not, I don't have any nostalgia for this really, so like it's probably better text. No, it is so ugly. It looks like somebody's writing an essay in Arial, like over your game or something.
Because it's in HD and
it does not.
It doesn't look right at all. I don't know why. It really is, Chris, one of those things where we often say, "Why did you do this?" Where but you can kind of see the idea. But I look at that and I'm like, I don't know why you thought that this was like a passable idea. I don't know how the fuck you thought you were going to get away with this.
Yeah, it's remarkably ugly. So I fixed it. I do like that new soundtrack though. The rearranged score is awesome.
It is,
and the music what I'm finding as I journey through like certain Final Fantasy games is that like I find the music is the most appealing part of it to me. Like I really, really love. It feels nostalgic without like I don't have much experience with this music, but like it feels nostalgic anyway. And that's fascinating to me. It's like there's like a comfiness despite the fact that it's unfamiliar. And that's kind of amazing. As far as what I'm doing in the game, I got to be real. I have no fucking idea what's going on. I feel like I was on an airship. I'm walking around in this area that feels like Afghanistan, or it looks like it feels like Metal Gear Solid 5 a little bit, like that like Afghanistan like desert location.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the hell's going on. The characters are cool. Kefka is awesome. Still, I remember really, really liking Kefka when I was a kid and thinking
his laugh is iconic.
Yeah. But I'm enjoying it. I feel a little out of my depth because it really is a game that's outside of like drastically outside of my wheelhouse. Even just the presentation of it looks a little bizarre. Like when you're fighting in these random encounter battles and the background is so high, like not high res necessarily, but like really these beautiful painted landscapes. And then there's my sprite. I got to get used to that because it's very, very jarring. But I like it. I just the fast forwarding through combat thing also feels a little wonky to me. I'm not sure
the square thing. Like
yeah.
You have to like set your commands with a turn and then you hit square and then it'll do what you last did over and over again.
Yeah. That screwed me up a little bit because I was like, how does this work exactly? They don't really explain it to you. Not it's necessarily what they're supposed to, but once I figured it out, it got a lot more manageable. But I gotta say, man, still as somebody who's not huge into Final Fantasy, this soundscape is so good. Like every bit of audio in this game is wonderful, and it's like masterclass.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so glad that you think so.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, you playing any other JRPGs?
No. I know what you're saying.
Okay, I'm seeing reports, seeing some evidence of things. I just I don't know. I wasn't gonna call you out, but then I thought I can't abide by this.
So what Dustin's referring to. Obviously, your consoles or my consoles are all my consoles, my PlayStation, my Xbox, and I think my Steam as well is connected to my Discord, and Discord will kind of display the game that you're playing. And I will be in podcast recordings for Snark Tank, and I will look at my name and it will say Persona 5 Royale or Persona 5 Royal, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
And it bothers me because I'm not playing it. What's happening is a friend of mine who I have staying with me has been playing it incessantly on my machine, not with my account. I'm just signed in as like a second party.
Interesting.
And so it says that I'm playing Persona 5 Royal. You can check my I don't have any like achievements for it. Not that I'm opposed to it. I've been hearing the soundtrack for it, and it's been like the soundtrack for Persona has like been in my head now.
I heard the soundtrack in Persona 5 is awesome.
It's really good. Yeah, it's super, super solid.
I loved 4, so I believe it. 4 might be like one of my favorite soundtracks ever. So yeah.
But I gotta say, like as I'm watching, I feel like Persona is a great game to watch people play. Like for me, like I don't. There's something about the menus being like very, very stylized, where like my brain doesn't know where to look for the information, and I get like really, really overwhelmed by it.
I'm not crazy about that aesthetic myself.
I love the aesthetic. I feel like it's not functional enough for somebody like me who's like really, really anal about that stuff. Like it's actually why I really enjoyed Elden Ring's kind of really minimalist kind of approach to like menu design, because it's really straightforward. It's not really flashy.
Mm-hmm. And Final Fantasy VI shares that as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very similar feeling there, where it's like, oh my god, everything's readable and legible. But no, I'm not. I did not spend the entire last several days playing Persona 5 Royal.
Fair enough. Well, we have a question here from Ollie Reynolds. He wrote in and said, "Hello, chaps. Quick one for you today. Are there any plans to do a spoiler cast for Final Fantasy VI? I know it seems odd to do one for this game given its age, but with both Chris and Dustin trying it out for the first time, I think it would make for an interesting conversation with Colin and perhaps Dagan. Keep up the great work." I do wonder, so I'll give you guys, and I've said this already, is that Dagan and I are going to do Final Fantasy VI on Knockback, but we're working our way up to it. The next recording we do is Final Fantasy I, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So I keep telling him, I'm like, let's earn 4 and 6. Like, let's earn it. Like, let's play them all. And so we want to do that this year. We hope that we can do that this year. So if we do something with Final Fantasy VI, it would probably happen in the fall on Knockback. However, I am not opposed to you two doing a conversation about Final Fantasy VI, which I think would be enlightening and interesting for people to hear without me and Dagan. Especially because you don't have history with the game like we do. So we're coming with all sorts of baggage. I mean, I remember buying this game in Toys R Us. Like, I remember it clearly. It was $80. It was like, I was so fucking excited. Yeah. And you get the ticket out of the thing. I don't know if you guys ever bought games at Toys R Us, but you would get like a ticket out of something and you'd bring it to the register, and then you'd go to the counter and they'd give you the game. I remember that. That's like an actual memory. So there's a whole loaded history of me with this game, and I don't see it through an objective lens whatsoever. So, but I will say this, Chris, did you get to the Espers yet? Have you used the magic system?
The Espers?
Yeah. Like the actual magic system in the game. You would know, I think, if you got them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been using magic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I know I've been using,
like you equip them, and then like the whole magic system is you equip them on anyone, and then they learn over time the spells, and then you unequip them and equip another one, and so you can teach every spell to every character, but they all have these like multiplication tables attached to them. So like you earn you earn these battle points, and then so you'll have an Esper, it'll be like Esper X, and then it'll say ice 2 and heal. And it'll say ice times 2, heal times 5, whatever. And that means that you have to get to 100 by earning points. And so for every point you get times 5, times 2, whatever, for having that equipped. Once you have that equipped, you learn the spell. And so you can deeply customize your characters. Because eventually there's a huge cast in Final Fantasy VI. And so you start really fucking with them to give them very specific skills in addition to the layered skill that they're equipped with. So, Edgar's got his tools, Sabin's got his kung fu, and Cyan's got his blade techniques and all of that. But then you also teach them magic. I think it's so deep. It's so fucking fun. I mean, Jesus, I feel like the depth is almost escaping me then, because I feel like I've been playing. Like, this is exactly the feeling that I had when I was a kid, where I feel like I'm playing these games wrong. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, I'm not absorbing a lot of the information, or I'm not absorbing a lot of like the tactical, like actual, like deeper number driven. I gotta jump into it. Well, I wonder
actually customize this stuff.
It's not pedantic, I don't think, and certainly not trying to be patronizing, but why not watch like a video that explains it for 10 minutes or whatever? Because I only say that because
too arrogant. That's why.
Yeah, prepare. Well,
that's what it's me. Like, this game is from the 90s, for fuck's sake. I gotta figure out, like, if I can't figure this out, what does that say?
But you also have to remember, we had an instruction manual during the instruction manual era. You're going a little more blindly than we would have even gone. I guess
that's true. Yeah.
So there is that, but I also think I say that from a position where I feel like doing that, like kind of swallowing my pride, has enriched my experiences. And I brought up Civilization. I played Civilization 4 entirely without knowing anything about how to play Civilization. It wasn't really until it honestly wasn't until I got to Civilization 6 that I really understood the game, because I finally was like, I gotta just watch how to play this game. Like, I'm clearly missing massive swaths. I'm getting something out of it. I'm enjoying it, but I'm clearly not understanding it. And no matter what I read and all the in-game documentation shit, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. This is like, and then I just watched some, like, I think I watched like 2 hours worth of videos this guy put together. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you know? And then you just learn it and understand it that way. And Final Fantasy VI is so much less complicated than that. But the Esper system is so deep. It's like, you know, the materia system is a similar thing, but the materia system was really about permanence. The Esper system is about permanently, or I'm sorry, the materia system is about a lack of permanence. Like you have this combination equipped. When you remove that combination, you don't necessarily have those skills anymore, whatever. And you can master things, but it's different. It's cool. The Esper system is cool. Plus you can summon all the Espers too, you know? And I remember that being something that I didn't know when I first played the game. So that might be something that was lost on you too. Like you can cast spells on multiple enemies at the same time, cast spells on multiple characters. I know a lot of this stuff is not explained in the game. So
yeah, no, barely any of it's explained. Like I was lost for a good longer than I care to admit. I'm just like where do I go? Because like once you're set loose on the open world map, it just sort of feels, you know, like you're just sort of like let loose. And I was like, where am I going? And it's probably my fault because I'm like I'm always multitasking when I'm doing stuff. So I'm like listening to stuff or trying to keep up with news like a psycho. But yeah, I got to focus a little bit more on it. Because if you know what it is, I'm playing Hitman as well. And I'm really, really into it.
Yeah, I understand.
But
well, it's for you. It's not. I mean, Dustin, are you down to play 6 at some point and do a thing with Chris if you guys both beat it?
Yeah, I'd be down. I just don't know when I'm going to play it. Just because I'm focused on my Metal Gear replay right now. And then I'm probably going to get Star Wars tomorrow. So, and I am thinking, and I know you're about to talk about this game, Colin, but I really was trying to decide how many of them I wanted to play before 6. I was thinking I was going to play 1, 4, and 6 just to get the very first one, the first one that really has a story with 4, and then 6, which is the best of those. So I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do yet. So I'm not opposed to it. I wouldn't know when that would be.
Well, speaking of Star Wars, Nathan Densley did write into us and said, hello, boys. I know Colin has expressed nothing could interest him in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but Dan Stapleton at IGN, a generally hard reviewer, gave it a 9, and other reviewers were giving it a thumbs up. Are any of you going to be playing it? I have zero interest in this game, so I don't get a fucking 11 for all I care. I'm not going to play it. But are you guys, so Dustin, you're going to play it? Chris, are you going to play Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor?
It's just such a big file. I don't know. I you know what I want to do? I'll when I finish Final Fantasy VI, I'll think about it. Because I definitely can't juggle all these games at the same time. I'm really into Hitman right now, and I don't want to lose that groove because it's such a specific groove, like that stealth, kind of like that mindset is very difficult to get in, especially just because I don't know, the world is so stressful. But I want to finish one of the things I'm doing now. And I've already finished Hitman. I want to finish Final Fantasy VI, and then I'll see where I stand on it. I definitely want to play it, but I'm gonna have to delete a lot of shit to make room for it.
Dude, time to upgrade to the M.2, dog. You can get one for $85. That's what I did. I finally bit the bullet and upgraded.
I know. I'm lazy.
Yeah, this is not a game for me, but I'm sure we'll find a way to cover it. I don't know if the Dukes are playing it, and if they are, well, actually, Maddie's definitely playing
Maddie's it. Maddie's reviewed it. He's done.
Oh, right. Okay, cool. Yeah. So maybe they'll cover it over there at the very least. It'll be somewhere on our network, but we should definitely figure out what we're going to do with that game. If Dustin's going to play it, I heard it is great, but it's just not for me. I have just zero interest in it, but it's going to do great, and it's going to be a very relevant game, so we'll do our very best to cover that as soon as we can. Within reason, we want everyone to play leisurely. And for me, I beat Final Fantasy I. I platinumed it, so it's my 139th platinum trophy. It's the only of the 6 platinums in the Final Fantasy games that I think is unmissable. I shouldn't say that. It's not unmissable, because that would be something like The Walking Dead. There are no missable trophies. So you can go back and you can go to different areas and make sure you got, you have to fill out your best area. You have to open every treasure chest. That stuff is highly missable in the later Final Fantasy games. If you're trying to get the platinum trophy in 4 and 6 and you're not playing with a walkthrough, you're crazy, because you're playing with fire. Like you're gonna miss something, no doubt. Like you're gonna fucking want to kill yourself because those games are so long, especially 6. So So be wary. And actually, someone did write in about this, I think. Yeah, Nat Patterson wrote in and said, "Hey, Colin and Co. Greetings from Down Under. This one is mainly for Colin since it's about trophies. But how do you feel about the trophy list for the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters? I can't help but feel they really phoned it in, especially with the treasure chest and bestiary trophies. I reckon this is enough to stop me even bothering to try and get the platinums in any of them. How about you?" I totally disagree. I think the trophies are awesome because, first of all, they're the same as the achievements on PC and the phone that for those ports. So I don't think anyone expected it was going to be any different. But they are the same. We can confirm that now. And I got the first one, like I said. And I think, though, it is a little bit like phoned in the sense that it shares the list between the games. Like basically you have your story-driven trophies, your story-based trophies, but then it's all like, 10% of the bestiary, 50% of the bestiary, 100% of the bestiary, this and that and the other thing. I get that that's not exciting. Go to every location, all of that. But the reality is that if you don't play the game mega completely, like beat to beat in the moment, in the dungeons, in the spaces you're in, you will not going to get them. So I don't think that they're phoned in at all. In fact, I think they're pretty fucking hardcore. I would argue that these the very act of getting all of the treasure chests in a game like Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, that's a dare, dude. There are hundreds of them. And it's not like Final Fantasy I where you find them in rooms of 8 and shit like that. There'll be like a huge hour dungeon with 3 of them. And you're going to miss one, and then you're going to miss So I disagree. I think it's actually a surprisingly hardcore set of trophies. It just doesn't seem that from the perspective of Final Fantasy I and maybe even a little bit of 2. But once you get past that, it's going to get pretty hairy. And I'm trying to play them in order. And I'm trying to kind of wait for Dagon as well. Like I'm done with one. Dagon hasn't even begun one. So I'm like really eager to move on to the next one and so on and so forth. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I think the trophies are really great. And I wanted to say, I thought just to mimic some of what and echo some of what Chris said is the soundtrack and like the reworked text, like the reworked text boxes are still not right, but they're so much better than whatever they were thinking of doing on phone and PC. And so I'm thankful for that. The bestiary option is really cool. Dude, the art galleries are dope. I mean, we're talking about this beautiful Amano art, like one of the great gaming industry artists, really a fashion designer by trade, doing this absolutely iconic work and just seeing it in high quality and all that's so cool. So I think there's a lot of really nice perks. I highly recommend Final Fantasy and the Final Fantasy Pixel remaster as I did last week. And I also downloaded and played a little bit of Horizon Burning Shores. And it's good. I'm not blown away by it. It's sad to see silence in it. And knowing that what's the actor's name? I can't remember the actor's name.
Lance Reddick.
Yeah, Lance Reddick. I'm sorry. Passing. It's kind of like eerie, as that sometimes is when you see someone in a film or something. It's like their last work. You can imagine that this might have been the last thing he did, or one of the last things he did. And yeah, so it's eerie from that perspective. Going back is cool. Again, and I said this on Sacred Symbols Cross Defining Duke, so I'll let people listen to it there. But my biggest disappointment here with Horizon is just how it's started this conversation about how there's going to be a third Horizon game, which we already knew. And that, for some reason, just really gets in my craw. Like, it just shows to me that people are just not beating games. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. And that's just sticking out my craw a little bit too. But it's cool to go back. I will say this, Los Angeles is represented in a really interesting way. It's almost like an archipelago, and you go around it by boat largely. And so it's neat. It's like kind of like fusing God of War with Horizon a little bit. And I don't hate it. It's cool. The combat is so good. I mean, the things that shine in Horizon Forbidden West shine here, of course, too. But I'm not very far in it either. So I wasn't mega compelled by it. But I will also say that playoff hockey is distracting me every night. And like the NFL draft is on after we record this and all that. So I'm just distracted by external things right now that are really fogging me up. But we'll hope to get to that. Back to that in time to talk about it next week, and maybe even do something like an extra episode about it. Although I don't know if that's going to happen. All right. That's what we've played over the last week. Let's get into it. There's only 3 news items. One of them is pretty big and I wrote it out here. I wanted to get into it. So we'll do that now. Number 1, an announcement out of Sony-owned studio Guerrilla has caught some people's eyes this past week, and the letter they released and all that surrounds it are certainly worth discussing. For starters, Angie Smets, who has led Guerrilla since the departure of Herman Holst a couple of years ago, is leaving the team. Holst, of course, went on to replace Shuhei Yoshida as the head of PlayStation's first-party initiative, thus leaving a vacuum for Smets to fill, who will now leave a vacuum in her wake. But fear not. Smets is staying with PlayStation and is being promoted to head of development strategy for the brand. Having been at Guerrilla since before they were acquired by Sony following the original Killzone's launch, Smets has worked as a designer and later producer on every Killzone game, rising to executive producer for Killzone Shadowfall, the PS4 launch game released in 2013. She was later the EP on 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn and its 2022 sequel, and also acted as a second-party executive producer on Kojima's 2019 PlayStation-published game Death Stranding, one of only a handful of games to use their Decima engine externally. With Smets out, Guerrilla's structure is different. Joel Eschler is now the production director, Hella Schmidt the GM, and Jan Bart van Beek as studio and art director. Eschler is a 2K veteran who worked in production on games like BioShock Infinite and Borderlands the pre-sequel before joining Guerrilla as producer leading up to the launch of the original Horizon. Van Beek has been art director since Killzone 2 on PS3 and will now lead the entire team. As for Hella Schmidt, she has no gaming credits that we can find, and it's likely as general manager that she's a business person first. But this isn't all the letter said, and all we have to talk about. People noted two other things that were worth talking about, both from the announcement letter's final paragraph. They wrote in part, quote, "We have full confidence in our new leadership as they steer Guerrilla towards a bright future, expanding the world of Horizon with Aloy's next adventure and our exciting online project," end quote. This caught people's eye because it confirms that a third Horizon game is in development at Guerrilla, as we noted earlier. However, this is a confusing piece of news considering such a game's existence was obvious to anyone who beat the second Horizon game and noted its smash commercial success through 2022. Confirmation of an online project in development within their walls, however, is more of what we already know, as that title was confirmed in 2022 for release at an unknown time, almost certainly one of PlayStation's wanted dozen or so games as a service currently in development. And there's much more Horizon coming, if other rumors are true, including a Horizon MMO from NCSoft, a PS5 remake of Zero Dawn from an unknown team, and an aforementioned, and a Horizon TV show. The final piece of information that's interesting, however, has to do with the aforementioned Decima engine. Decima is a powerful piece of tech, and it appears Sony is looking to rely on it even more. That's because Guerrilla's technical director, Michael Vanderloo, quote, "will be focusing on the future technology and strategy for the Decima engine," end quote, the letter concludes. And over on LinkedIn, Vanderloo expands on his new role. He was previously the studio's co-lead, but is now going all in on Decima itself. As such, they're hiring extensively for roles having to do specifically with engine work and not with game dev, indicating that Guerrilla's prestige and importance within Sony's family will continue unabated well into the future. The only currently announced unreleased Decima game is Death Stranding 2, though it's presumed both Horizon 3 and their online game will run on the engine too. All right, much to talk about here. Dustin, let's go to you first. Restructuring of the team, maybe less interesting from the outside than the confirmation of a Horizon 3, which I thought was obvious, maybe less interesting than the doubling down on Decima, which is a wise decision and a powerful engine. And I think people are seeing, you see the videos circulating for Burning Shores, and you were seeing them from Forbidden West as well. It's pretty impressive. I mean, in an age, not for nothing, when some games are not running at 30, even 60 frames, like Gotham Knights and soon to be Redfall, it's crazy that this game looks so good and runs so well and such a beautiful architecture, and it makes it very attractive to them. And I think they're going to look to kind of circulate this engine more widely within their walls. But I think one thing that I wanted to touch base with you on is that it seems like Guerrilla's strength is growing, that their prestige within the first party might only be secondary or tertiary to the likes of Naughty Dog and Insomniac. So I'm wondering what you make of all this.
Yeah, the Decima engine stuff is what's most intriguing to me, because I think it's, you mentioned Death Stranding 2 being developed as well, and just how we've seen it to be adaptable and really good at doing these really large, open, beautiful worlds in the games we've seen so far. And you have to imagine, of course, that they would be interested in trying to use that tech on maybe some of their other games as well, just in order to kind of solidify and keep everything under one umbrella. The thing, though, is that Sony has so many teams that are so competent and have their own engines that seemingly work really well for the types of games that they're creating. I mean, think about Insomniac with the engine that they use, and then of course Naughty Dog and how detailed and realistic it is. That I'm trying to figure out who they would want to have in their first party also use the tech as well. But like I said, I think there's a big benefit to the sharing of resources if the engine is up to snuff and versatile, because you don't want to have a situation like EA did with the Snowdrop.
Oh, was
EA?
it Snowdrop?
No,
Yeah.
Snowdrop is Ubisoft. EA is Frostbite.
Frostbite. Okay, Snow, Frost. Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Close enough.
It's weird that they both went
Yeah.
down that path. Yeah.
But particularly for Frostbite, there's tons of stories about how they really were trying to adapt that engine to work for games that it wasn't designed for. Where I think it was particularly, I think a lot of this info was actually in Jason Schreier's first book that I read, that particularly with Dragon Age, they had a really hard time because it was designed for shooters. And then you're trying to make a third-person RPG, and the tools within the engine just weren't there. So they had to build a bunch of tools for the engine while they're making the game. And apparently that was a really, really difficult task. And so, again, this is just my layman understanding of engines, but it seems that Decima is a pretty great tool. And I think that, Kojima didn't have to use it again for Death Stranding 2, but clearly wanted to go back to that. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see how they'll use it going forward. And then, of course, I don't want to repeat ourselves too much, but I think it's worth reiterating that very concerning about the potential saturation of Horizon that seems to be on the pun intended, but on the horizon of just so many things. And so I think it's going to be important for these different games, particularly whether it's an MMO, and then a different online game, and then show that they make sure that these are differentiated enough that they feel unique and not just another Horizon thing. Because I think it's worth saying that DLC doesn't seem to be lighting the world on fire right now. And you have a million Horizon projects in the works. I'm not saying that Horizon's down bad or anything like that, but I don't know if it has quite the prestige to have this many titles in the universe in development. But who knows? Maybe they'll be sick and it'll be awesome. I've always said that I think that a multiplayer Horizon game that kind of has the spirit of a Monster Hunter could be insanely cool. So I'm hoping for something like that.
Yeah, I think there's like first of all, I agree with you in the oversaturation. Something we've certainly gone in on in the past on the show is that I don't think Horizon demands this much attention either. I wonder how they're going to manage that, or if it's going to work out. Is it going to, I assume some of the stuff's not going to have to do with Aloy. And so they're trying to make this into a bigger world. And obviously Call of the Mountain has nothing to do with Aloy either, but it is concerning because the MMO is its own thing apart from the multiplayer game. But I think the multiplayer game does have the potential to extract the most out of Horizon because the gameplay really is central to the entire. The world is interesting, and I like the story a lot. I think the story is actually quite riveting, but it's not what's most interesting about the game. It's the combat and fighting the dinosaur robots or whatever. And so if you can really focus in, like you said, on something like that, I think that would be really positive. Chris, what do you think about the shakeup at Guerrilla and the doubling down on Decima? Dustin is right that a lot of Sony studios do use their own engines. Like Insomniac's on there. It's like Insomniac Engine 4 or something like that. And Naughty Dog has their own proprietary engine, and of course has the initiative for the common engine inside their walls, the ICE team, or did. I don't know if that still exists anymore. I think it does. I know Sucker Punch has their own engine, so on and so forth. So it's interesting that they're doubling down on this, but it could be something licensable as well.
Yeah, I wonder if this is maybe an effort to, and this is a little bit tinfoil hatty, I suppose, but maybe it's an effort to make this engine as flexible as possible, so maybe second party relationships could be born out of it, and maybe there's like kind of this incentive where maybe they work with people using Decima in its second party capacity or a non first party capacity, and a relationship kind of blossoms from that. It's like, hey, well, you have a pretty good handle on Decima, working with us for a while. Why not join the family a little bit? Especially since we're in a mergers and acquisitions style world. I feel like that might not be a bad way to go about it. Maybe getting people familiar with a piece of proprietary tech that you are specifically known for, and then kind of adopting that talent into the fold. I mean, that's a little roundabout. That's a bit of a roundabout way for them to do that. But I would imagine. I
was just going to say, I mean, you could be right on the money though, because Supermassive used that was the first external team to ever use Decima with Until Dawn. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's possible. I also wonder how much of this has to do with a lot of these live service titles that might that might be brewing under the surface. Like, I don't know how flexible Decima is, because Decima is really the only an engine we've seen operating in a very, very similar capacity. Like, for all their differences, Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, and Death Stranding, they are largely the same style of approach to like building a game. It's a big open world, vast open play spaces, and traversing through those play spaces. We've never really seen Decima in a multiplayer capacity. And obviously Dustin brought up the issue with Frostbite going from a multiplayer engine jumping to this weird single player RPG, and how that was a lot more than they bargained for. It could be that Decima is just like a very, very flexible engine, and they maybe see promise for Decima specifically in the space of multiplayer live service. I don't see why they would double down on this engine specifically, if not for the fact that they saw potential in that arena, because that is an arena that they sorely need to kind of double down on and compete harder in. And so it stands to reason that you would want your teams flexible, or your teams really, really knowledgeable about a piece of proprietary tech that could potentially bolster this area of your business model that isn't particularly strong at the moment. But that's kind of my read on it. I wonder how flexible it is in that capacity, because we don't know.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that, and I was just reading this just on Wikipedia. I was following the links there to the outside sources, and they only even named Decima and made it different than just like the internal Guerrilla's engine, whatever you would call it, Guerrilla Engine 1 or whatever, because Kojima started using it, and so they had to kind of market it in such a way, because I don't think Sucker Punch's engine has a name, and or if it does, it's like an internal thing. And as I understand it, it's it's both a profitable and useful game for Sony to play with these proprietary engines, but also very dangerous, because it obviously gets them out of licensing and all of these things, and they can have the teams make these engines that are both catered towards the hardware, very specific hardware, and very specific needs of the studio, which is cool. But it also means that like all of the knowledge and know-how is at the studio, and you need to retain them, because if people leave, then they don't really know how anything works anymore. And that's the one advantage, or not one, there's many advantages, but a really big advantage of using external engines is like you pay, but you hire Unreal Engine engineers. Yeah. You hire people that know how to use these different things, and it's a more useful skill as opposed to learning something inside and maybe not being able to translate that later.
Couldn't it be argued that that's a way of talent retention as well? Like getting people so familiar and so proficient with one specific piece of proprietary tech that leaving feels a little like, well, I got to go back to like Unreal. Like,
that's true. It's like very cyclical, and they're also going to be rusty on that or unfamiliar.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Totally. All right. So we'll keep an eye on things with Guerrilla. Congratulations to Angie Smets. I've met her a few times back in the day. She was very, very nice. And I noticed that she followed me on Twitter, so I followed her back. Maybe we'll talk to her one day. Who knows? All right. I wanted to talk about this. I was surprised that this seemed underreported. I thought this was bigger news, especially with who's making it, but maybe not. Number 2, when you think about it, it's actually kind of strange that the mega popular Funko toy brand doesn't have a proper console game yet. But according to a recent announcement, that's all about to change. The company's line of vinyl figures are a global phenomenon, all revolving around the so-called pop line of fast-selling, heavily licensed products spanning just about every collective conceivable IP you can think of. Well, the new Funko video game is called Funko Fusion, and much like TT Games' mega popular Lego games, the Funko game will take advantage of its many licensed connections to appeal to players. And the Lego connection isn't just tangential. The studio was founded by and is led by veterans of WB Game to own Lego Studios TT Games, and it appears they're going to try to mimic some of their old team's success. The new team is England-based, not surprising considering the TT Games connection, and it's called 1010 Games, like the time 1010. Their Funko Fusion game is set to come to unidentified consoles in early 2024, and we can assume PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 will surely be part of that group. Licenses announced in the game include Jurassic World, Back to the Future, The Umbrella Academy, The Thing, Child's Play, Battlestar Galactica, and Masters of the Universe, which, if you haven't noticed, are all owned by NBC Universal, which is funding the title. The press release says in part that, quote, Funko Fusion features dozens of playable characters in Funko Pop form from popular NBC Universal stories, in addition to other properties, each with their own unique personalities and abilities. Online multiplayer adds even more chaos to the mix, allowing up to 4 players to team up and battle enemies, explore vast environments, and solve intriguing puzzles, end quote. And before you dismiss this game entirely, keep this in mind. 1010 Games is led by John Burton, the co-founder of Traveler's Tales, and a 35-year industry veteran that acted as the creative director of the very first Lego Star Wars game, as well as the first Bionicle game, and acted as creative director and/or lead designer on more than a dozen other Lego games at TT. So certainly a lot of heft behind this idea. I'm curious if you guys think this will work in any way. Just the lack of buzz about this at all indicates to me that it doesn't matter, but it seems like such an obvious replica to Lego that it almost belies belief that it didn't happen sooner. I'm curious, Chris, what you think of this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, well, I'll start with this. There's no better person to have at the helm of this. Like I struggle to even imagine or to even conjure up a name that would even be remotely as effective at making this work, if not for this particular guy. However, I would say that I feel like, I don't know, Lego and, you know, these other corollaries, like, I don't know how much personality pop has outside of the fact that it is a very specific collector's item. Like, even people that I know, or that tangentially or even very, very, very well, who are really, really into collecting Funko Pops, who are also into video games, I don't see them jumping into this or jumping onto this. Now, I could be completely out of touch. Like, this could be something that, like, within the Funko Pop community is exploding right now, right? Like, this could be, you know, it could be a situation like Roblox where, like, we just don't know, or like we're completely underestimating this thing that is actually has a large potential to be popular to an otherworldly degree. But I don't know. I don't know if Funko Pops have that pull that Lego has, or any of these other kind of analogous collectible IPs have. Because wasn't there? I swear to God, there was already a Gears of War Pop game.
Sorry, I muted. I think because there's someone fucking mowing the lawn. Yeah, there was a Gears Pop, I think it was called.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't remember anybody really giving a shit about that at all.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that come out.
I don't know. It was okay.
That was a PC. That was PC and Android. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and iPhone.
But even so, like, you'd imagine that would even be like a pretty good place for that to be. You'd argue that there's probably no better place for a game like that to be other than mobile platforms. Like, because where do you see yourself playing like a Funko Pop video game on your PS5 alongside Jedi Survivor? Like, I don't know.
No,
it feels like that's the best place for it.
Yeah, that's true. And I do appreciate that it's just so different than Lego, but we are playing Lego Star Wars next to that game, you know. So
that is true, but that's also, I don't know. I feel like Lego has this intrinsic kind of flexibility, like, because Lego could be just like, you're building blocks, but they're also, you know, you're building sets. It's a little bit more intimate. There's more to do. Like, a Funko Pop is literally just something that sits there. It would be like if they made like a bobblehead game or something, where it's like, sure, bobbleheads are a popular collector's item, and like plenty of people pay a lot of money for bobbleheads, and there are huge bobblehead collections. But I can't point to you a single foray into any other transmedia stuff that bobbleheads have had to any real success. I know these are different things, but I think Lego in and of itself is more flexible in IP than Funko is. Yeah. And we'll see. I don't know. I could be completely off, but I will say, I'll say this before I hand it off to you. There, like I said at the beginning, if you were to attempt something like this is the guy to have. Like, I can't think of anybody better.
Yeah, totally. And it could be, you're probably right in the sense that it really could be a victim of this notion that we put out there sometimes, Dustin, that we already have a Lego game. We already have a George. So we don't like this heavily licensed. And even in the heavily licensed thing, it's like, we already got a Fortnite. There's all this like Venn diagram of all the shit going on with all these different games. And I don't know that I find the specific lineup of things they have to be very intriguing. As much as I love Battlestar Galactica, for instance, I just don't know that that's really driving the kids crazy today. So what do you think about this? Do you think there's anywhere for this to go, or do we already have a George?
Yeah. Funko Pops are weird to me because I can't really get a gauge on how popular they are, because it's, in some sense, they seem insanely popular, where They're sold in so many stores. I mean, not only just the big stores like Walmart and Target, but if you go to a mall where there's a Hot Topic, they'll sell them there. They'll sell them at Barnes and Noble. They're everywhere.
Yeah, there are stores that are almost entirely just those things.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Or any comic book store or toy store, whatever. They're everywhere. So I would imagine that this game would be successful based on that name alone. It's always strange to me, too, because I have a few Funko Pops, but most of them, I'm trying to think. One of them was given to me and the rest of them are Iron Maiden, and they don't really look like normal Funko Pops. I'm just not really into how they look. And for me, that's the thing is where, and this is purely just on a personal level, a Lego game, even if it's of a license that I don't care about, is more intriguing just because I like Legos. I grew up with Legos. And maybe there's people that are in their early 20s or teenagers now that grew up with Pops, and this is that for them. And so that's cool. I will say that the fact that their universe or whatever, that they're going within NBC Universal, it's weird. So the ones you have listed here, Jurassic World, I would say that's S tier. Back to the Future, also S tier IP. Umbrella Academy, okay, popular but not common amongst everybody. The Thing, boomer shit.
The Thing is so good. Have you ever seen The Thing before? I mean,
I've not seen it. I need to. I know everyone says it's awesome.
It is awesome. But it is a stupid IP to have in something like this.
Yeah,
dude. And then Child's Play, Battlestar Galactica. We're getting more into the weeds here, right, where there's someone out there that thinks that's cool, but I just don't. It's such a weird mix. Maybe it'll work for him though. I mean, it just seems like they need a few more S tier properties in there to really. I think doesn't it have like the Mummy though.
Oh yeah, the Mummy's in there. Yeah,
there's some. So maybe there's more in that I'm not remembering or whatever. But
Dustin, the Mummy is boomer shit now. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like, like we like that stuff,
right?
And even look, The Thing is awesome. The Thing is like one of the best movies like ever. But
I need to see it. I know it's all practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
It's really exceptional.
The Thing looks like to me better than even stuff that's out today, like that's in like it's incredible, like what they managed to do with that movie, and it's a great movie in general. But no one who's into movies and who's like, man, The Thing is awesome, is looking for a Funko Pop version of The Thing. You know, people who are interested in a Funko Pop version of The Thing are people who are interested in collecting Funko Pops. You know, and that's kind of the thing where it's like, I would agree. Back to the Future and like Jurassic Park and stuff like those are good IP to have, but like, you have to understand that these are going to, everything that's special about these IP are going to be, it's going to be pushed into this machine that's going to make them ugly Funko Pops. Like, I hate the way these things look. Like, sincerely. Like, I think they look so gross and unappealing that I cannot fathom why anybody would want a shelf of 90 of these things soullessly glaring at you as you're falling asleep every night, as you wake up every morning. First thing you see is you're gazing into, I don't even know, like, some vaguely tapered off rectangular Charlie Brown figure with like just doll's eyes. It's scary.
A doll's eyes.
It's gross. And I don't know, man. We'll see how it works out. Maybe it will be this massive phenomenon. But I don't know. My prognosis is
prognosis negative.
Prognosis negative.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with you just in the sense that, like, so my only interface with someone who likes Funko is I have a bunch of nephews and nieces, and one of my nephews in 7th grade, I think, he like loves Funko. He's got like a bunch of Funko shit, and that's it. That's all. So I know he loves it, but that's the extent of my exposure to it at any time in my entire life. So I have no clue. I don't even know if they're up there. I had like some Mega Man Funko type things, but they were like bootleg. They weren't like real Funko Pops. Capcom released them, but it was like some other company that did them. But I don't even think I have them back there anymore. I was looking behind me. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I just think that there's an interesting possibility of something here, but it almost feels too late. You know, we were talking about Angry Birds last week and Rovio going to Sega for $750 million. And I'm like, that's kind of a steal considering how big Angry Birds was. Why didn't you do this 10 years ago? You know, what have you been doing all this time? But
do you think they would have sold for that price 10 years ago though?
Oh no, it would have been extraordinary. That's what I'm saying. From their point of view, they would have been worth a ton back then. Going for under $1 billion. I mean, Angry Birds is at one time the biggest video game in the world. I assume they would have been worth billions of dollars at their height. Easy. You know?
Yeah.
But then they released the movie. They actually worked with Housemarque, because they're both Finnish. And Housemarque ported Angry Birds to PlayStation 4, I want to say. So that was like one of their external projects, which I think is interesting.
I thought you were gonna say for some reason they ported Angry Birds to film.
Oh,
I was like that's fucking bizarre.
That's fucking weird. All right, finally, number 3. As they do each month, Sony has revealed the upcoming slate of games gracing PlayStation Plus for the month of May. This time around, the games are for PS Plus Essential, the base version of PlayStation Plus that all subs have, and the following titles will be available from May 2nd until June 6th for active subscribers. Remember to add these games to your download list, even if you don't intend on playing them now, as you can play them later, as long as your subscription is active. The games this month, however, are a bit of a disappointment compared to recent months. The biggest offering this month is no doubt the 2022 PS4 and PS5 racer Grid Legends. Developed by EA-owned studio Codemasters, Grid Legends will be available to players on both consoles. Also available across both consoles is the 2021 action RPG Chivalry 2, developed by Torn Banner Studios. That game's actually supposed to be pretty fun. The third and final game this month is for only PlayStation 4, the 2020 mountain biking game Descenders, developed by Studio Rage Squid. The game was decently received upon its release a few summers ago. I don't know, kind of a down month. Anything here for you, Dustin?
Yeah, I'm not too amped on these, but it's okay. I've heard that Dissenters game is pretty cool, so
the mountain
that's
biking
interesting.
Game?
Yeah,
cool.
I will say, Colin, something that I meant to mention this last week because I don't think we brought it up on the show, but they already announced. Was it next month, or I guess it would be June? I'm trying to remember that that Enhanced game is going to be released directly on PS Plus as the game of the month.
It's yeah, I can't remember the name. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Here, I'll pull it up.
Let me see if I can think about it before you pull it up.
Oh, I know it is.
What is it?
Humanity.
That's what, dude. I just wanted to say Populous for some reason, like, which is like an old game, but I kept wanting to say Populous. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that comes out in mid-May, I think.
So yeah, that'll be.
Is that for all PS Plus or is that PS Plus Extra?
I'm trying to remember because I thought it was.
I wondered that because when I was writing it up, it is not anywhere in that blog, and I would assume they would say that. You know.
That is weird.
So I don't know if it's for the base PS Plus Essential.
Well, here, okay, so this was on.
And if it is,
April
they fucked
20th.
up by not promoting it that way.
Yeah, April 20th. Nice. It says Humanity available day 1 as a PlayStation Plus game catalog title.
Game
out
catalog.
May 16th.
Game catalog is like extra.
Is that extra?
Premium? Yeah, I think that the catalog. I think this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Okay, so extra and premium members.
I was about to say, like, this is. It's so tedious now. To just
so that is a different thing.
Not to be confused, Chris, with the free games catalog that was up for all that time. That's a different thing.
Yeah. That's a different thing entirely. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Chris, any games here for you?
No, I mean, I think Grid is reasonably good. But
Codemasters is talented.
Yeah, it's just not really my style. Chivalry, I never played the first one. No, I feel like, and maybe the audience will know, but Descenders has been brought up on the show before in like an interesting capacity, and I don't remember what the hell that was. I think something about the developer, and like it might have been like a Game Pass thing, like some kerfuffle.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Well, he was on Duke actually last year, I think, and he's had some interesting things to say about Game Pass and subscription stuff. We definitely have talked about him.
That's interesting because this is them taking a lump sum, but it's 3 years after the game came out. At that point, I wouldn't give a fuck if I were one of these guys.
Oh yeah,
it's like you're going to give me what? It'll probably be like $500,000 or something. It's like okay,
yeah. Absolutely. At that point,
it's like we've gotten everything we can out of Descenders.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, PS Plus for me, I don't know. I haven't played. It really is Maneater. I want to say is the last game I actually played, but that was like back to back with I can't remember that stupid. Why do I always forget about that stupid game's name that came out with PS5 about the Bugsnax?
Godfall?
Bugsnax.
Oh,
No, not
Bugsnax.
Godfall. No, Bugsnax. Yeah.
You said stupid game, and I immediately thought Godfall.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't mind playing it. There was nothing else to play anyway. All right. Let's get into listener inquiries as we end the show. Each episode of Sacred Symbols ends with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from Patreon. You can support us over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access to the show, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas on a thread we post every week. Sacred Symbols Plus twice a week, our supplemental podcast, Q&A every month, get your name in the credits and more. We appreciate you. Let's start with Jamie Ray, who says, "Hi, gentlemen. Avid listener from the UK here. I recently had to take a short break from gaming due to tendonitis in my hands and has made me realize how central gaming is to my life and my social circles, which got me thinking, have any of you had a gaming-related injury that forced you to take a step back from gaming? And if so, what did you do whilst you were healing? Thank you as always for the amazing content." I want to kind of broaden this a little bit. Thanks, Jamie, for writing in and just say, like, has an injury ever stopped you from playing video games for a time? Because I've had 2, and I'm curious. I'll go into mine, but I'm curious if anything happened for you, Dustin. We talk about your hand being fucked up, right? But that's not stopping you, clearly. Have you ever had an issue full on stop you from playing?
I can't think of one, really. I mean, there's times where if you're really sick and you have nothing to do, that you want a game, but you can't even do that. But that's not an extended time. That's like a day and a half or something. But no, can't think of a single situation that I've been in where I haven't been physically been able to play games. But as far as what I would do while I was healing, I don't know. The wishful thinking is read books, but honestly, it'd probably just be watch an anime or a show or something, like just be as lazy as possible. So I don't know. Because you would be also not able to use your hands for any other hobbies, right? So I couldn't get back into model kit building or something. That'd be off the table. So you'd have to kind of be really limited. But yeah, probably just watch anime, I guess.
Chris, have you ever been stopped from an injury from playing games?
No, I've never been so irresponsible that I got tendonitis like a loser. No, no, I've fortunately never had anything like that where I've been so injured or so mangled that I couldn't play a video game for like an extended period of time. The only thing even remotely similar to that was like I just lost access to my machines, because like I had a 360 and that was it, and it died, and then I sent it to Microsoft for like weeks, and it took them like ages to get back to me. It was still broken it's still broken when it got back to me. But that's not like an injury. But I also don't. Before this year, I didn't really do much of anything.
Right.
Right. So like, what am I going to get injured doing?
Oh, my injuries came from the stupidest
furiously
shit.
Jerking off.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like what am I going to? My hands are safe for the most part.
You're like George with his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 times in my life, I actually was stopped playing video games from an injury for a prolonged period of time. Like both when I was young, like before in high school, actually, both of them. The first one was, and I've showed this off in the past. I don't know if it's going to come through the video, but I have a huge scar on my hand. I don't know if it comes through. But
why'd you do that?
So and I was telling you how I got injured doing stupid shit, right? I played hockey for years and years and never got hurt. I got like some banged up or whatever, but I never got like a massive injury or anything. I was watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the couch in my living room in 11th grade. My dad was going out, and so I was getting up to say goodbye. And so I put my hand down on the ground and I crushed a glass underneath my hand that was sitting there that I had a glass of like Coke, and it just destroyed my hand. I had a ton of stitches in my hand. And I remember it because it was like, oh my God. And my dad was just going out for the night. And I remember him being like, and then like put his stuff down and like went and got like a towel and clean. And so that fucked my hand up.
Awesome.
And in fact, I'm what's considered cross-handed. Ambidextrous is what people say, but that means you can use your hands equally to do things. I'm cross-handed, which is a pretty unusual thing where you do things dominant with both hands, depending on what it is. And I write with my right hand, and that's about all I do with my right hand. I actually use a mouse with my right hand as well, because that's just how I was taught. But I'm pretty much a dominant lefty otherwise. And that actually made me even more left-handed because I couldn't use my right hand for quite a while. And it fucking sucked and it hurt so bad.
How long was that recovery?
It was like I couldn't play hockey for 6 weeks, I think, something like that. So, and the recovery was probably even longer than that. Yeah. Because it was like in such a bad place. Because it was just I remember it sitting there like being stitched, but like it would open constantly, like in the little like furrows because it's right there.
Oh, Jesus,
so that's one.
Fucking Christ.
And then the second one is so that was a stupid way I hurt myself. And then the second stupid way I hurt myself, and this was days before 9/11. And I've told this story on Knockback before. It was the Sunday. 9/11 was a Tuesday. I want to say this was on a Saturday or something like that, or a Friday. It might have been a Saturday. I was biking home from work. I BMX'd when I was in high school. I don't talk about it very much, but I loved BMXing. And I had a red line BMX, and I was just riding it home from work, and the chain snapped, and I went over the front of it and broke my collarbone. I was in the middle of a neighborhood, no one around. I had to fix the chain with my broken collarbone, and then get it back on. And then I biked to where my friend. It was a place called Kitchen and Coffee. It was where my friend Cody worked. I went there and I was like, is Cody here? Because like he can drive me to the hospital, and he wasn't there. He wasn't working that day. So they called his mom, Lainey, who was like a teacher. I love her. She's awesome. And she brought me to the hospital. So she's the one that brought me to the hospital when I broke my collarbone. And that injury was so debilitative. Like I can't even begin to tell you how horrible that injury is. You have no idea how much you use your collarbone until you break it. You can't even move. You can't even move without. Dude, my dad I used to walk to school because we lived close, but when I broke my collarbone, my dad would drive me to work or to drive me to school. And it took me minutes to get out of the car because you have to be like, you have your thing like taped to you basically. And you're just like trying to hold your body as tight as possible as you move.
Oh God. I'm like getting like empathetic pain from just like the thought of it.
And so I was out of commission there. But what I remember about that is that happened. So that happened, like the Saturday before 9/11. 9/11 was on a Tuesday. What I remember about this whole thing is my brother came the next day, so Sunday, and we saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in the movie theater. And I had like a wife beater on with like a button down draped over me. And then Monday went back to school, Tuesday, 9/11.
That's a crazy week.
And my people know my dad's a New York City firefighter. So that went off the fucking rails for the family for a long time. And then what I remember is finally getting better. And the first game that I really played when I got better was Metal Gear Solid 2, which came out in November of that year. So that's how it all lined up for me. And so, yeah, I was kept from play because I couldn't even hold the controller really. That's a really brutal injury, dude. Whenever I hear someone break their clavicle, like their collarbone or dislocate their shoulder, I'm like, I hear you, man. A big memory I have is my alarm going off that Monday, so September 10th, and me instinctively crossing over, like attempting to cross over to like shut it off and screaming. Like screaming out in pain. And also they gave me codeine for the pain. And I've said this before because we make fun of my dad all the time on Knockback, and my dad's just fucking insane. And my dad's like, nope, can't take this, and took it away from me. Like, wouldn't let me take any of the codeine. So I also did it with no pain meds.
That's fucking crazy. That's
probably a smart thing. He probably was like, I don't want you addicted to codeine. So he's like, no.
I don't know, man. That's a pretty brutal. That's a brutal time to be denied drugs.
Yeah, my dad's a crazy person, and in a good way though. Like, but he's crazy. Like he's the kind of guy that like gets a cut on his finger and then just wraps it in duct tape and leaves it there for like, a couple days or whatever. And his hands used to get so dry. He fell in a fire in the 90s and fucked his hands up. And so his hands used to get so dry that he would put them in Vaseline and then wrap them in like cloth or even diapers and sleep with it like that because his hands were so fucking crazy, Oh
my God.
So he's got a high threshold that I think he portrayed on a lot of other people around him. Jamie, thank you for writing in. Connor Berry wrote in and said, hello, boys. I'm a fairly new listener to Sacred Symbols, so apology if this is something you have talked about at length in the past, and of course we have, but I'm glad to talk about it now. What is everyone's opinion on Ghost of Tsushima? I just beat it myself and I felt very upset that I've been sleeping on it as long as I had, especially since it is probably my favorite Sony game narratively since The Last of Us. Thank you and keep on keeping on. It has been a while. Quietly, 2.5 years have passed. More than that, really. Since Ghost of Tsushima graced PlayStation 4 as its swan song in the wake of The Last of Us Part 2 in the contention. And I really feel like Ghost of Tsushima, when we look back at it, Chris, is a game that kind of reunified everyone leading up to PlayStation 5. Like it was a game that no one really had contentions or problems with. In fact, it was way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought that Sony was kind of really farting it out in some way, and I was totally wrong about that. it's pretty obvious Ghost of Tsushima 2 is a real thing and is going to come out from Sucker Punch. I would imagine that's going to come in 2024 maybe, and will probably be announced at the showcase. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. But in the meantime, what do we think about this? This was pre-Dustin on the show, and you were really passionate about it. We did a spoiler cast on it back in the day. So how are your feelings on it now?
I mean, I still love it. Like, I think it's great. I think it's of those style games, like specifically open world Ubisoft style games, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima did it in a way that was not reinventing the wheel, but it took the shortcomings of that genre and that style of game design and really made the best of it. I like the way it handled the fog of war. I like the way that it navigated through you through the world in a way that felt natural to the environment, like the wind. I love the wind, like guiding you, the little foxes and animals kind of leading you towards objectives. It felt like the game did a good job of leaving you in the world, but still leaning on, video gaming conventions that had they been implemented in any less caring way, it would have been very, very largely detractory to the experience. And I think it's a lot of expertise that goes into, balancing that, those elements, having the wind guide you, or like a big marker basically telling you where you need to go, is potentially very disruptive to a game that's trying to go for that style of atmosphere and that tone. And I thought they did it expertly. And I thought the story was a lot better than I had anticipated. Not groundbreaking in any way, but really, really enjoyable. I thought the idea of poison being such a big narrative point was really awesome. And it's something that I hadn't even expected going in. It was like a really interesting plot point. I like Jin Sakai. I like his friends and the characters around him. It was really, really cool. And the game had a lot more depth than I anticipated either. I didn't anticipate necessarily all the stances and these types of things that made it feel a little bit more, not as challenging as a From Software game, but definitely a lot deeper than I had anticipated from a Sony game. That typically I think is a little bit more focused on, narrative and depth in story and in environmental detail than, combat necessarily. So I think it's great. Great soundtrack, everything about it. I thought that Kurosawa mode, that black and white mode, was a little silly because the game's so beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine wanting to remove color from it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the standout features of that game is the colors. But no, I love it. I think it's great. That free mode as well was nice cherry on
Legends,
top.
yeah.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima Legends is really, really cool.
You assume that's got to be baked into the new one. Yeah. Yeah,
you would imagine. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Were you going to have another thought?
Oh, no, I've been kind of going on and on. I do think I still really, really enjoy it. I think, like I said, that Ubisoft style game is really, really not my jam, but I feel like of the people who have done that and attempted it, I feel like Sucker Punch did it the most successfully in the least obtrusive way. So I hold it in pretty high esteem as far as like a PS4 title. Yeah,
you weren't going on and on at all. You can go on as long as you like. I think you're right. And in the taxonomy, Dustin, of open world games, I feel like there is a split and a reasonable one about what people want or what they're looking for or what they expect. And there are games like Fallout and Far Cry and stuff like that, where it's like, here's where you go. This is where this is on the map. Like it's very literal. There's nothing really left to the imagination. The imagination comes from the exploration of these unknown places, but you know where you're going, where you're supposed to be. Once you find it, it's added to the map, all that kind of stuff. And then you have like the Elden Ring branch. And in some way, Ghost of Tsushima is kind of like a prelude to that. It's not quite as literal. It tracks much more. It is obviously, it has a journal and all these things. It's much more Sony than it is From Software. But what I think is that they do embrace the lack of a HUD and the naturalistic kind of presentation that I think is a natural culmination of Sly Cooper into Infamous into this. It's almost a refinement of, especially with like Sly 3 into Infamous, and then from there, it's almost like the refinement of open worlds, generally speaking. And yeah, so I'm quite fond of Ghost of Tsushima myself, and again, much more fond of it than I thought I was going to be, for sure. Dustin, what are your thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima? Especially, you weren't here when the game came out, so you weren't born yet.
No, not born yet, but I've been born since. and I've played it. And my biggest regret is that I didn't get to play the PlayStation 5 version, the director's cut, because man, the things they did are the issues I had with the game were all fixed in that, particularly that it was at 30 FPS, which is, at the time was standard, and it was a very solid 30 FPS, which was nice. But now on PlayStation 5, you can play at 60 FPS, and even the little bit I did play on PlayStation 5 just to check it out, it already looked stunning on PlayStation 4, but it really, really looks incredible when you're walking around and there's the cherry blossoms flying in the air and at 60 frames per second. I don't know if it's quite 4K, but it looks great on a 4K TV. Really, really came together nice. The other thing that they fixed in that director's cut version is I really wanted to play the game in Japanese, being that it is so core. The location of the game is so core to what it is. It's called Ghost of Tsushima. So it felt right to play it in Japanese, but in the launch version, the lip sync of the characters was in English, no matter what. So it looked like you were watching a dubbed movie, and I couldn't do it. Now, and to be fair, there's nothing wrong with the English voice actors. They did a fantastic job. But I'm pretty sure they fixed that in the director's cut version, that now the Japanese voices, the lip sync is actually dubbed correctly. And so it is a game that I think about every once in a while and think I would like to go back to that at some point just to experience it again with, much higher fidelity on PlayStation 5. And they even changed some stuff too, where one of the main complaints people had was there was no lock-on system for the game, and that was added as well. So I'm very curious about all these changes, and yeah, echoing just what you guys were saying about it being a really surprisingly awesome game, in that I never thought that it was going to be bad, but before it came out, I was not excited for it. I remember that was a game that Sony was kind of quiet about what it was. We saw some of the duels in previous trailers, particularly the E3 trailer that they did, but then they did that state of play kind of finally showing what the game was. And it ended up being really, really great. And also just shout out to some of the awesome moments where they do the samurai duels, where they click their sword out with their thumb, and how they build up the cinematic qualities of that. Really awesome and fun attention to detail that I really enjoyed. So I definitely before Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever they call it, I'm definitely going to at least play some of it again. I don't know if I need to replay the whole thing, but I definitely want to return.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be called. I wonder if it'd be called Ghost of some other place in Japan.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Chris?
Well, I was going to say, I still never played the
Iki Island.
Iki
I never
Island?
played that either.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't know. If I was to jump into Ghost of Tsushima again before the second one, it'd probably be to jump into that DLC.
Tsushima has a native PS5 version, right?
Yeah.
That's the director's cut.
Right.
That has the DLC, I think.
So I think that I'm kind of doing the same thing with a few other games where I never played Frozen Wilds, for instance, on Horizon, and I believe that Horizon remake is real and coming to PS5. I just totally believe that. So that'll no doubt be baked into that. So I'm like, in preparation for Horizon 3, I'll go through Horizon 1 and 2 again and play that all again. And I assume with Ghost of Tsushima, in preparation for Ghost of Tsushima 2 or Ghost of X, I will go and play the PS5 version, refresh myself, play the DLC, and I've caught up with that. So I think I told you guys in September, actually probably around the time Armored Core comes out is probably when I will be playing Spider-Man on PS5. A lot of people ruin that for themselves by, you can still play it, of course, but they gave themselves their trophies by sending their saves back and forth. I'm like, no. I'm going to save this. I'm going to be patient for the sequel and run through that and do all the DLC, the White Widow stuff and all that I missed. But this DLC is so frustrating because it takes so long and you feel like you have this incomplete experience. I don't know. Thank you for writing in, Connor. We love Ghost of Tsushima. Robert Foxgrover wrote in and said, hello all. With the Pixel remasters doing the rounds and Yoshi P's next title, Final Fantasy XVI, approaching quickly, has anyone had a percolating interest to check out Final Fantasy XIV? It's the first time an MMO story and music was so captivating. It gripped me so much that I had played it like a single player game, ignoring others and their weird ERP struggle sessions. I don't know what that means. It works very well in that single player regard as well, allowing players to use NPC characters in dungeons instead of other players. In addition, Colin has stated that Final Fantasy IV's story was his favorite of the Pixel remasters. He might be delighted to know Shadowbringers and Endwalker's stories take heavy influence. Thanks for what you do. Thank you, Robert, for writing in. I do. I think about it all the time. I gotta be honest with you. I think about it pretty often. Like once every few weeks, I have a serious think. It's like, should I play Final Fantasy XIV? And the answer is always no. It just seems so daunting and overwhelming. There's just so much content. I don't feel like it's a good use of my time. And I gotta like be kind of mindful of that. Not that gaming generally is a good use of anyone's time and we enjoy it, whatever. It's my job. So I do it as much as I can to be as up as I can. But in using that time, it's just like Final Fantasy XIV. I don't know, man. But then again, I go ahead and and then I just take 2 weeks out of gaming to platinum Wild Arms too. It's like, who the fuck am I to really tell you or say that I'm using time wisely or not? But it just doesn't seem, it seems like I'd be buried in content. And that doesn't sound fun. I don't know. That just doesn't sound fun to me at all. I think there's like a line that I want to draw, but it does look good. It does look interesting. Yoshi P is an intriguing character. Dustin, I think that if I do play Final Fantasy XIV, it will actually be after 16 comes out, because I think that Yoshi P's got to prove it to me on the field first. You know, right now it's all paper tiger stuff for me because I don't play MMOs. So he's going to prove himself in the main with Final Fantasy XVI. And if he does that, then I think he'll become a very captivating figure to me, such that I'd want to see what he did previously.
Yeah. I have tried Final Fantasy XIV and I had a bad experience. And some of it is somewhat unfair in that.
Did you get sexually harassed?
Dude, I wish, with someone with cat ears in particular, which, by the way, the whole cat ear thing is a big turnoff for me in this game. The kind of some of 14 has a bit of a furry vibe that I'm not down with.
I hear you.
But apparently there was this thing where I had tried Final Fantasy XIV years ago, or closer to when it released. And then, so I had an account, and then they created the trial, the meme thing that people say about how, oh, you can try up to Shadowbringers for free, blah, 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 blah. So something about the fact that I already had an account disqualified me, even though I never bought the game, from doing this trial. And it took forever. I was trying to why can't I log in? Why can't I do this? And yeah, it was a huge nightmare. And then the game, and apparently maybe they've fixed this at this point, but the game really throws you into the deep end. And to be clear, if you don't like MMO style combat, like World of Warcraft or something, you're not going to like this game, which I don't really have an issue with that type of combat, but it's not really something that I particularly am interested in anymore.
Is it like it's not kinetic? It's like you're clicking on commands or something?
You're you're pressing. I'm thinking of World of Warcraft where you have the bar at the bottom with all the abilities and stuff. Yeah, that's what.
Oh man, that doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah, and it's frustrating for me, at least, just because for example, my friend Brad from Easy Allies mentions to me all the time. He says, I gotta play 14. And I, in some ways, and a lot of people recommend it, I believe them in that. I'm sure the story and the music and the world are amazing, but it's just that barrier of it being a lifestyle. That's the problem. I already have a lifestyle right now. It's committed to watching One Piece, and it's a very difficult, sometimes daunting task. And the thought of playing all of Final Fantasy XIV and all of its expansions, I can't do both of those at the same time. Too much mind share. And there's too many games that I want to play to dedicate myself to just the one game. That's always been the thing for me, is that even a game like Destiny that I've really loved and gone back to, I can never fully commit to it. I was lucky that I got in early on and was able to kind of ride it as it went.
Yeah.
The fact that there's just so much already of 14, and that the one experience that I had was really negative, I just don't think I can do it.
Yeah. How about you, Chris? Are you interested in Final Fantasy XIV at all?
No.
Fair enough.
I can't. I mean, adding to what Dustin said, it's the same exact situation. I mean, I was talking about the Division earlier, where it's like that's a game that I really, really liked, and had like a really good experience with that I got in early on, and I still fell off of it because I just didn't have the time to juggle more than one of these at once. And I'm into Destiny. I have so many people in my real life who I see regularly who are also into it. People who aren't really into much else in comparison. Like I don't really play games with, I have friends, my friends Paul and like these other people who like they only play Destiny. And so this is it. You add Final Fantasy into that mix where it's something that's already kind of like an uphill battle for me. No.
Yeah. By the way, $15 a month for that game.
Oh my God, really?
In addition to paying for it. Yeah, it's still got a subscription fee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
That's the turnoff. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't sound like my thing, but I do think about it, Robert. I do think about it. Josh McKinney wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Boys, according to reporting from Polygon and Kotaku, this past week, Wizards of the Coast admitted to sending out actual Pinkertons, yes, the ones featured in Red Dead, to YouTubers' houses to investigate a leak of the upcoming Magic the Gathering product. The YouTuber alleges that the Pinkertons upset his wife and threatened him with fines and jail time if he didn't take his video down and return the product. Assuming this is all true, what's your take on a major corporation resorting to thuggery and intimidation to get their way? Follow-up question, what would each of you have done if a literal Pinkerton had shown up at your door demanding you hand over the leaked Lara Croft script? Thank you for all the great content and try not to let Arthur Morgan's antagonists get you down." Well, I protect my sources, so. I think this is not surprising at all. It's like, I say this over and over again, no matter how much you like a business and its products, you need to maintain some sort of adversarial relationship with them, because they'll, whether or not you're doing anything wrong, and this sounds like these people might have been doing something wrong, I don't know the full story. It's just like, they don't care about you, ultimately, I guess is what I'm saying. They don't. And so at the very least, maintaining an adversarial relationship with these various entities, I think, is a positive thing to do for any journalistic, critical, whatever endeavor. But I will say that the Lara Croft script is like, no, I wouldn't hand that over to anyone. Like I'm acting as a journalist. I didn't ask for this information. This information is sent to me, and that's how journalism works. I'm not out to protect companies or do things in their best interest, or the government or any of these other powerful entities. I find the cheerleading for either corporations or government to be cringy as fuck. And so, yeah, I think that was a funny thing here. Dustin, did you see anything about this situation?
No, I didn't. But to me, the solution would be pretty easy in that if someone that I didn't want harassing me or my wife at my house that isn't law enforcement, yeah, I'm going to call law enforcement and tell you to get the fuck off my porch and leave. It seems simple as that. Because the Pinkertons are not law enforcement and they can't fine you. Tell them to go get a fucking warrant and then come back.
Wow.
Easy as that.
Fourth Amendment. That's what I'm talking about. Chris, you going to fuck up some Pinkertons?
Well, I gotta be real. I was shocked to even learn that the Pinkertons were even something that still existed.
Yeah, didn't we first learn that because didn't they sue Rockstar?
Yeah,
something like that.
So. Yeah, but I forgot again because they're that like insignificant as an entity. Like I'm more aware of the Proud Boys. You know what I mean?
Right, of course.
If somebody brought up the Proud Boys, I'd be like, oh yeah, they're real. But like hearing that the Pinkertons are real again is still equally as shocking as hearing it the first time when they attempted to sue Rockstar. I mean, oh, my phone started talking to me. Shut up, Siri. Oh my God, shut up. Jesus, that actually.
Now mine's talking to me because I said her name.
I have my
holy hell!
These women.
You're right. Catch your breath.
No, that actually, I heard a loud accosting female voice behind me, and I got real scared. But
right out something Freudian and Chris.
Yeah, that's absolutely Freudian. The Christopher.
Oh
my God. I don't know, man. Just if the Pinkertons come up to you, first of all, just they're not real, even if they are. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to really do it. They can't control you. They don't have any say. Just ignore them. Or like Dustin said, call the actual police. You know,
maybe
of course
they really
you run the
aren't
risk
real.
of-
Maybe like it's like, what do you mean the Pinkertons came and visited you? The Pinkertons were dissolved in 1972. Dun-dun.
Yeah. It's like, I was talking to a man in that apartment over there. It's like, that apartment's been unoccupied for 50 years.
Yeah.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode where,
exactly.
where the Pinkertons are ghosts. It's an X-Files episode. That's awesome.
All right. James Kinsler III wrote in and said, hello, Sacred Crew. If you were in charge of developing a Mount Rushmore for the 4 people most important in gaming history, who would be the 4 people carved into the side of that mountain?
Oh, wow. That's an awesome question.
Yeah, it is. Just got to say, all right, so like Miyamoto, right?
Yeah, that was the first person I thought. Was like, it's got to be Miyamoto in there.
Miyamoto.
I feel like Kojima's pretty obvious.
Yeah, Kojima.
Right?
Maybe.
You can't have a Mount Rushmore of video games without Kojima.
Yeah, it's like what are we trying to represent? Because it would be like, would it be like Ralph Baer or something? You know, like one of the Atari dudes?
No. Man, it's actually tough.
Gabe. Dude, John
Gabe.
Carmack.
John Carmack. Yeah, he's interesting.
Yeah.
Gabe Newell. Yeah, that's interesting.
Gabe Newell.
How many options? How many people are on
4.
Mount Rushmore? 4?
Only 4. Although we should have just have 50 people carved into this insanely just the hubris of that mountain.
What about Ken Kutaragi?
Ken Kutaragi, father of PlayStation. Yeah, he's a good option. Let's see. I'm just writing some names down. How about why can't I think of the dude's name that was with Nintendo forever? Not Iwata, but the ambiguously ethnic dude.
Ambiguously ethnic?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know.
The guy from Nintendo of America, Reggie.
Oh, Reggie.
Oh, Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Right, Reggie.
That's a perfect way to describe him. He's vaguely.
Well, I was thinking of a
vaguely
Japanese
something.
guy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I
I
was
was
like,
like vaguely Japanese.
Because I was thinking, I searched top 10 most like influential people in gaming, and that the old head of Nintendo Japan, Yamauchi, right?
Oh, is it Yamayuchi? I think.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
he's an
I'm
interesting
not
cat.
looking at it. This is a tough one. This almost, I'm going to write this down. This is almost like a Sacred Symbols Plus episode.
Yeah, we can
each come with our 4 that we think should be on there.
I do think the 3 that we have for sure are pretty safe though.
This is funny. The 3 that we had right off the bat, there's one article that has and this is from a site called Make Use Of, the 4 most influential people in the history of gaming. And the first one they listed was Miyamoto. The second one is Kojima. The third one is John Carmack. 4th, Will Wright.
Oh, Will Wright. Yeah. I was thinking of guys like Will Wright, David Crane. I mean, I don't think they would be on the mountain.
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe the Sacred Symbols Plus episode is like the Avengers of gaming. So we not limited to just 4. Like who are the household, the rock stars?
Yeah, our individual Avengers teams. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm writing this.
It's a good idea.
I'm writing this all down. We're desperate for ideas right now because the Sony refuse. I'm not even convinced there are any games coming to PlayStation after.
My favorite
Spider-Man 2.
My favorite joke about Mount Rushmore is I'll go to parties and I'll talk about how amazing it is that it just formed that way.
It's remarkable, truly.
Yeah, it's insane. What are the odds?
And then there was that other thing, right? They carved into a mountain much later. It was like a guy, like an Indian on a horse. You know what I'm talking about? That's out in the Dakotas too, I think, or maybe it's in like Minnesota or something like that. I don't know.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think that was in the 90s. All right. Finally, Zachary Abel or Abel. It's 2 L's. I don't know. Boys, a question for the panel, but Colin, you've always puzzled me. Colin, you used to be very active in playing sports, still enjoy watching them and seem to have a competitive spirit, but don't enjoy online and competitive games while being a massive gamer. What gives? My friends and I all grew up playing sports, watching sports, etc., and it's a big reason why we all love competitive online gaming still today. Chris and Dustin seem to have less of this, yet are both enthralled in multiplayer games throughout the years. I'm not equating that you don't have to play sports to enjoy competitive gaming, but loving games and competition so much, yet not the combination of them, has always puzzled me. It is interesting that you guys are not really into sports, but you like the multiplayer aspect and the competitive aspect. I love sports, and I really feign, away from any sort of competitive gaming. I hate it.
I don't think that's. I think that's entirely reasonable because we already have a George.
Oh yeah, that's true. In our lives, you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like I already have this fulfilled in this way, where I'm taking a non-passive role in it. So why would I like? Of course, I already have this need filled. I don't need to watch people kick a ball around or
That's true. That's interesting.
I got it already.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. Go ahead.
That's something to think about. Just the aspect of, I don't really care about. I don't know. Does this sound lame? In that I don't care about other people's competition.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being a part of a competition is way more fun to me than.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. There's times where I've rooted for people. I was rooting for Chris when he was doing his thing at the Creator Clash. But I was invested in that because Chris is my friend, and so I was felt more personal. But like for the Steelers or the Pirates or something, that I guess the personal level is that they're from your town, and so you as in your community are rooting for something together. I understand that, but I don't know. That doesn't apply to me. I was just thinking, just last night, I was unfortunately on Facebook, and I saw there's a very small arcade here in Butler that's doing a pinball league. That's like Wednesday nights. It's, I think $15 to be a part of the league, and then it's $5 or $10 every week to the pinball league to play.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this really intrigued me. Where I was really thinking,
do it.
I'm not good at pinball, but the thought of being part of that league sounds kind of fun. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if I would actually really want to commit and do that. But yeah, it's different for me, even with something like, I don't know, playing Call of Duty or multiplayer games like that. Is when we did that match versus Jaffe's team, that was really, really fun for me. I don't know. It's weird though, because I feel like I can't get too involved with competitive stuff because it becomes obsessive for me. Like I don't know if I would want to have a long-term, truly serious competition because I feel like it would be all consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm very attracted to real life competitive stuff like chess even. But although I play that mostly online or pretty much entirely online now. But sport is really exciting to me. Like rooting, it's my connection to Long Island. For me, so it's very personal. Like you guys are saying, for me, it's like rooting for the Jets and rooting for the Islanders is like a very Long Island thing and very much a home base kind of thing that I like to do. But I also love the sports that they're a part of, and I've always been really into sport. And I really want to actually play beer hockey, like in the coming months and years. I miss playing, and now that I'm slowly getting back on the horse with things, like getting my drum kit and all that, and just slowly figuring things out again and finding my way and finding the things that I gain pleasure out of. I think there is something to be said that I get that competition from other things, and then I look for my own little lane. I don't play games I don't want to play games to compete with other people. That gives me anxiety. It's just,
that's so interesting.
Yeah. Like I just don't, it's actually like almost a turn off to me to be like, oh, I don't, because then I feel like I'm in a game with other people. It's like playing paintball or something where you need everyone to be playing at a high level to enjoy it, or it's just like, you just have some stragglers and you're just going to shoot and kill them. It's like, it's not fun. So you need to have people that are like-minded that want to go and play with you. And for me, it's like, no, I like to pause my game every 15 minutes to look at my phone. I like to get up and smoke the bong. I like to play with the dogs, and then I'm going to go do this stage, and then I get immersed for 2 hours and lose track of time, and then I pause it again. And, it's like, that's just how I play. It's always how I play. And that's why it's funny now that I think you guys have probably noticed that PS5 tracks your playtime, and it shows you on the cross media bar that, it's so wrong. Because it's based on how long I've had the package open, not how long I'm actually playing. And so it's like Final Fantasy 1 shows so long. And I'm like, I beat Final Fantasy 1 in 11 hours. It's like it's just that it was 11 hours when it really was over like 30 hours of me sitting in the chair because I was like getting distracted by everything because I have no fucking focus at all anymore. All right, my friends. Well, let's get out of here and go. Let's go around the horn for closing comments. Chris.
Oh man, I'm excited to jump back into Hitman. I'm really in this stealth mode right now. And I love it too because it makes you think like the worst person. The game makes you think like an evil like son of a. It's like, oh man, I can isolate this person in a bathroom, and I'm like, you start thinking it's like I gotta really be careful about these thoughts. Yeah. But one thing I picked up when I was playing, and I just wanted to share this because I thought it was so funny. is there's a particular contract where you have to assassinate this lead singer, and you can disguise yourself as their drummer. And when you go into the back, the rehearsal hall, you can be like, all right, show me what you got. And you have to impersonate this drummer. And Agent 47 is an amazing drummer. And it got me thinking, like, this man is theoretically so proficient at every single thing that any given person could do, even if they're at the upper echelon of talent, he could still step into their skin and impersonate them perfectly. But he's a murderer because his social skills are too bad to succeed at anything else.
Indeed.
I love that.
Love it. Well said. All right,
so
cool.
good.
So more of that for you then.
More of that for me.
No intrusive thoughts for you, hopefully.
No.
Dustin, closing comments.
Colin, you mentioned beer hockey, and it made me realize that everything I know about hockey is from watching the show Letterkenny. And I think that's a good thing. I think I'm happy with where I'm at, which, by the way, Colin, at some point, just from your love of hockey, that sounds, they have a whole spin-off show of Letterkenny about hockey players called Shoresy, which I have seen some of, and I think some of the jokes are lost on me, but I'm curious as a man who loves hockey and grew up with it, how that would find you.
Yeah, that show's long been on my radar. I don't know why I've never gotten into it, because I've seen a couple of clips over the years where I'm like, that is hysterical. And yeah. And and not that I don't want to make it seem like they're both the same because they're Canadian, but I'm attracted to some Canadian comedies. We love Trailer Park Boys, which I think is fucking hysterical. And I also really like Schitt's Creek, which is another Canadian show. So, so I'll definitely have to check that out at some point. But
did you ever watch Kenny versus Spenny?
I've seen the name, but I don't think I have seen it. No.
that show's so mean spirited. It's awesome.
What is it?
It's these two people, right? And they're like, it's like these two adults, and their whole competition is that they harass each other. They get into competitions with each other where they have to, like, I don't know, they have to wear a diaper full of meat for like a week or whatever. And one guy always cheats, and the other guy is like really straight and narrow. It's really of that time though, which is what's amazing about it. It's like really mean spirited. It's like 2008. So it's like everything that Twitter used to be for that first year and a half is just what the show is.
Right.
It's just like really evil.
Good shit.
But
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I remember seeing. I know the name, but I've never watched it. All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go, and I still have a little bit of work to do today, but I'm probably just gonna go for a walk now and hang out and dick around. Watch the football NFL draft tonight, which will have already happened by the time everyone hears this, or at least the first night will have. So I'm excited about that as well. But all right, that's it. Let's get out of here, my friends. Thank you so much out there for joining us for another episode of Sacred Symbols. Thank you for your support on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. And thank you for your support on free feeds as well. We couldn't do it without you. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.